Chapter 1. Lingshan County was one of the 18 counties under the jurisdiction of Lingfeng Country. In Lingshan County City, there were three major families: the Shao family, the Ma family, and the Chen family. Today, the Shao family, one of the three major families, was in a precarious situation. Everything started with the Shao family's true dragon. 18 years ago, the current head of the Shao family, Shao Qing, gave birth to a son named Shao Chen. It was said that when this son was born, an auspicious sign descended from the heavens. Indeed, Shao Chen had displayed a cultivation speed that defied the heavens. He completed the foundation establishment at the age of 15 and reached the channel opening stage. No one in the entire history of Lingshan County could match this speed. With such terrifying talent, coupled with Shao Chen's status as the young master of the Shao family and his handsome looks, Shao Chen became the dream lover of countless girls in Lingshan County, including the eldest daughter of the Chen family, Chen Muxue. As members of the three major families, Chen Muxue and Shao Chen could be said to be the most compatible couple in everyone's eyes. However, no one expected that when Chen Muxue took the initiative to confess her love to Shao Chen, she was rejected by Shao Chen on the spot. After that, Shao Chen left Lingshan County City alone to explore the world. It had been 3 years since then, but there was still no news of him. After Shao Chen left, Chen Muxue was filled with hatred for being rejected by Shao Chen. A month ago, after Chen Muxue was chosen by the strongest sect in Lingshan County, the Ju Mountain sect, she started to take revenge on the Shao family. In these 3 years, the hatred in Chen Muxue's heart did not diminish at all. On the contrary, this hatred was deeply imprinted in her heart. Whenever she thought of being rejected by Shao Chen, Chen Muxue swore that she would destroy the Shao family and make Shao Chen regret it for the rest of his life. Although Chen Muxue's talent was not as good as Shao Chen's, her status and appearance were top-notch beauties. In Lingshan County, there was almost no woman who could compare with her. However, Shao Chen rejected such a prideful girl, and he rejected her without any hesitation. She still remembered that when she expressed her love for Shao Chen only said one sentence to her: "We are not suitable." With that one sentence, Shao Chen did not even look at her. The next day, Shao Chen left Lingshan County City. Her hatred had been buried deep in her heart for 3 years, and today, Chen Muxue finally launched a fatal blow to the Shao clan. At this moment, in the Shao clan's residence, 7 or 8 Ju Mountain sect disciples led by Chen Muxue, as well as a group of experts from the Chen and Ma clans, surrounded the Shao clan. In the face of the Chen family, the Ma family, and the Ju Mountain sect, the Shao family was naturally powerless to resist. At this moment, a group of Shao family experts, led by Shao Qing, looked at Chen Muxue with a grave expression. She was still as beautiful as before, but under this beautiful appearance, there was an incomparable viciousness hidden. Shao Qing took a deep breath and looked at Chen Muxue. "Do we really have to be so ruthless? It's been 3 years and you still won't let us go?" Knowing that Chen Muxue hated Shao Chen, Chen Muxue sneered when she heard Shao Qing's words. "Let him go? When Shao Chen rejected me, I said that one day, I will kill everyone in the Shao family." Chen Muxue would not let the Shao family go. Even if it was just a dog of the Shao family, Chen Muxue would kill them all. Chen Muxue turned to look at a handsome young man beside her. The young man was about 20 years old. He wore a black robe and looked somewhat feminine. Chen Muxue held the young man's arm intimately and smiled charmingly. "Brother Ming, you promised me." "Don't worry, Sister Muxue. The Shao family will be destroyed today." Brother Ming smiled. Brother Ming's full name was Shin Ming. He was one of the top 10 inner disciples of the Ju Mountain sect. He was 28 years old and had reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm. Martial arts practice started from the Foundation Establishment Realm, followed by the Channel Opening Realm, the Yellow Realm, the Mysterious Aeon Realm, the Earth Mirror Realm, and the Celestial Realm. Each realm was further divided into beginning, initial success, advanced success, small completion, and great completion. Shen Ming's talent was not bad. He had opened his spiritual meridians and stepped into the Yellow Realm at the age of 28. No wonder he was one of the top 10 inner disciples of the Ju Mountain sect. Shen Ming liked Chen Muxue, so he came forward to help her get rid of the Shao family. Hearing Shen Ming's answer, the smile on Chen Muxue's face became brighter. The Shao family was completely desperate. As the strongest sect in the Lingshan Commandery, the Shao family was like an ant in front of the Ju Mountain sect. They could be destroyed at any time. Today, although only Shen Ming and the other disciples of the Ju Mountain sect had come, and their cultivation and strength might not be comparable to the older generation experts of the Shao clan, there was still the Ma clan and the Chen clan eyeing them covetously. Moreover, if the lives of the Ju Mountain sect disciples were harmed today, the elders of the Ju Mountain sect would definitely come in the future. At that time, it would truly be a disaster. Sigh, does the heavens want the Shao family to be destroyed? An elder of the Shao family looked up to the sky and sighed. They could not see any hope in the current situation. Moreover, there was still no movement from the County King's mansion. Obviously, the County King's mansion had acquiesced in the fact that the Shao family was destroyed. Seeing the despair in the Shao family's eyes, Chen Muxue laughed coldly in her heart. Shao Chen, you rejected me 3 years ago. Did you ever think that today would come? Haha, everyone in Lingshan County City knew that something big was going to happen today. The Shao clan was going to be wiped out. This news had already spread. Just as everyone's attention was on the Shao clan's mansion, a handsome young man in snow-white robes and long hair galloped over on a scarlet flame horse on the official road outside Lingshan County City. The young man was extremely handsome. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. There was a hint of calmness between his eyebrows. He gave people the feeling that he was like a white cloud in the sky, untainted by a speck of dust. His ink-black hair was tied up with a red ribbon. As the breeze blew, his hair danced in the wind. When he was only a few miles away from the Lingshan Commandery city, the young man smiled and looked at the familiar city. It's been 3 years. I wonder if father and mother are doing well. As soon as he finished speaking, the young man gently clamped his legs and the scarlet flame horse immediately galloped into the city. After paying 10 gold coins, the young man successfully entered the city. Along the way, he looked at the familiar surroundings and slowly rushed in the direction of the Shao family mansion. After 3 years, he was finally back. That's right, the young man who had just entered the city was the Shao family's true dragon, Shao Chen, who had disappeared for 3 years. He was known as one of the people who had the highest chance of becoming one of the top 10 geniuses of the Lingfeng country. After 3 years, he was finally back. There was a faint smile on his face. Because of his handsome appearance, many young girls on the street were attracted to Shao Chen. They were naturally attracted to such a handsome and extraordinary man. Please add recommend reward. Chapter 2. Unsurprisingly, Shao Chen had attracted the attention of many young ladies. Their eyes flickered with infatuation. To these young ladies, looks weren't important. What was important was Shao Chen's temperament. It was as though he was born with it and they couldn't help but be attracted to him. After 3 years of training, Shao Chen had grown from a 15-year-old boy to an 18-year-old young man. His immaturity had faded. Riding on the scarlet flame stallion, Shao Chen didn't care about the gazes of the crowd. He only wanted to return home and reunite with his parents as soon as possible. It was imaginable how much he missed his parents after 3 years of separation. He couldn't wait to return home. When Shao Chen rushed to the Shao family's residence, he inadvertently heard about the Ju Mountain sect joining forces with the other 2 families to destroy the Shao family. At the same time, he also knew that everything was orchestrated by Chen Muxue. It wasn't a secret to begin with. At this moment, the Shao family was at the last moment of its survival. Naturally, many people were discussing this matter. After learning about the Shao family's situation, A cold glint flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. However, it only lasted for an instant before he regained his composure. He rejoiced inwardly. Fortunately, he was back. If not, it would be troublesome. Without stopping, he rushed straight to the Xiao family's residence. At the same time, in the Xiao family's residence, they had no way out and were prepared to fight with all their might. Since there was no way out, they might as well fight to the death instead of waiting to be captured. Although the chances were slim, it was better than doing nothing. The atmosphere was tense. As both sides were about to attack, Xiao Chen strode into the Xiao family's residence with a calm expression. Upon hearing the footsteps, everyone turned to Xiao Chen. At first, they didn't recognize Xiao Chen and only felt that he looked familiar. But soon, as his father, Xiao Qing recognized his son and revealed an excited expression. Chen? Everyone sulked at Xiao Qing's words. The true dragon of the Xiao family actually returned at this moment. The Ma family and the Chen family had ugly expressions on their faces. They didn't expect Xiao Chen to come back at this time. Chen Muxue looked at Xiao Chen with a complicated expression. He was still as handsome as ever. No, Xiao Chen was even more handsome than he was 3 years ago. His temperament was even more attractive. Unconsciously, a trace of infatuation appeared in her eyes. However, it was quickly replaced by cold hatred. Xiao Chen had rejected her. He was the first man to reject her. Ignoring the others, Xiao Chen went up to his father and revealed a faint smile. "Father, you hurry up and leave Ridge Mountain County. Don't ever come back again." Initially, Xiao Qing was pleasantly surprised by Xiao Chen's return. But after thinking about the current situation that the Xiao family was facing, Xiao Chen's return was like walking right into a trap. Xiao Chen's talent was indeed heaven-defying. However, how could an 18-year-old Xiao Chen contend against the Ju Mountain sect? Therefore, before he could rejoice, Xiao Qing hurriedly urged Xiao Chen to leave and protected Xiao Chen behind him so that Chen Muxue wouldn't have the chance to hurt him. Xiao Qing knew that anyone in the Xiao family could die except for Xiao Chen because he was the true dragon of the Xiao family. As long as Xiao Chen was alive, the Xiao family would still have hope. He planned to use his own life to cover Xiao Chen's escape. However, just as Xiao Qing was about to fight to the death, Xiao Chen gently patted his shoulder and walked out from behind Xiao Qing. He said softly, "Father, leave this to me. I can handle it." There was not the slightest hint of nervousness in his words. Without waiting for Xiao Qing to reply, Xiao Chen stepped directly in front of Chen Muxue. Looking at the woman who intended to destroy the Xiao family, Xiao Chen's expression was still as calm as an ancient well. "Actually, 3 years ago, I thought that there would be such a day." Xiao Chen wasn't surprised by everything that Chen Muxue did today because he had already guessed that Chen Muxue was such a woman. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chen Muxue gritted her teeth. "So what if you guessed it? Today, everyone in the Xiao family will die." Xiao Chen's calmness made Chen Muxue furious, but at the same time, she was incomparably infatuated with him. He was such a man who could face any situation without batting an eyelid, as though everything was within his expectations. He had been like this since he was young. Hatred and infatuation intertwined in her eyes. She couldn't deny that until now, Chen Muxue still loved Xiao Chen because he was the most infatuating man that she had ever met. For example, Shen Ming couldn't be compared to Xiao Chen in any aspect. Seeing the complicated look in Chen Muxue's eyes, Xiao Chen sighed and said, "Do you want to know why I rejected you back then? Because when you confessed to me, you were still in contact with Ma Yuan. Besides, I also know that the reason why you had sex with Ma Yuan was because your Chen family wanted to form an alliance with the Ma family. Do you think that I would accept a woman who is willing to sacrifice her body for benefits?" Xiao Chen was not the slightest bit agitated by what Chen Muxue had done. His face remained calm from beginning to end. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chen Muxue and Ma Yuan, who was in the Ma clan's camp, both changed their expressions. It was especially so for Ma Yuan. As the young master of the Ma family, he looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief. You already knew? Ha, if you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Xiao Chen knew about the relationship between Chen Muxue and Ma Yuan from the start, so he didn't have a good impression of Chen Muxue since they were young. Naturally, he wouldn't accept her confession. After Xiao Chen exposed his relationship with Chen Muxue in front of everyone, Ma Yuan's heart sank when he felt Shen Ming's vicious glare. I'm finished. Everyone knows that Chen Muxue is Shen Ming's woman. Now that Shen Ming knows about what happened back then, Ma Yuan could already foresee his miserable ending. At the same time, hatred rose in his heart. It's all because of Xiao Chen. If it weren't for Xiao Chen, how would Shen Ming know about this? Ma Yuan's eyes were overflowing with murderous intent. He immediately brandished a huge axe and rushed towards Xiao Chen. Nonsense. Xiao Chen, I'll kill you. He attacked Xiao Chen fiercely. Facing Ma Yuan's attack, Xiao Chen moved his feet and dodged Ma Yuan's attack. Then, he kicked Ma Yuan's abdomen fiercely. Ma Yuan spat out a mouthful of blood and immediately bent over to kneel in front of Xiao Chen. Looking down at Ma Yuan, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Who gave you the guts to attack me? You used to be an ant in front of me, and it's still the same now. Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 3. Xiao Chen did not take Ma Yuan seriously at all. Ma Yuan's cultivation was only at the completion of the channel opening realm. Such strength was nothing in front of Xiao Chen. 3 years ago, Xiao Chen had reached the channel opening realm at the age of 15. He defeated Ma Yuan with one blow. At the same time, Shen Ming, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. "You are the true dragon of the Xiao family, the peerless genius that everyone in the Lingshan commandery is talking about?" Shen Ming had heard of Xiao Chen's name before. Not only him, but even the higher-ups of the Ju Mountain sect had heard of Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's talent had left everyone in the dust. Originally, the higher-ups of the Ju Mountain sect had been prepared to make an exception and accept Xiao Chen as a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect. Unfortunately, 3 years ago, Xiao Chen had gone out to explore and his whereabouts were unknown. The Ju Mountain sect could not find him. They had only heard of Xiao Chen's name but had never seen him in person. Today they finally saw him in person. It had to be said that Xiao Chen was better than Shen Ming in all aspects. But because of this, Shen Ming was even more displeased, especially when he saw the complicated look in Chen Muxue's eyes. Shen Ming's eyes flashed with a cold light as he said coldly, "Ma Yuan is an ant in front of you. But do you know that in front of me, you are also an ant?" He did not take Xiao Chen seriously. Xiao Chen's talent was outstanding, but Xiao Chen was only 18 years old. How high could an 18-year-old's cultivation be? At most, he could reach the completion of the channel opening realm. Shen Ming, on the other hand, was 28 years old, but his cultivation had reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm. Shen Ming did not dare to say for the future, but now, he was confident that he could defeat Xiao Chen because he had practiced for 10 years more than Xiao Chen. Just as he was about to personally teach Xiao Chen a lesson, a Ju Mountain sect disciple behind Shen Ming took the initiative to step forward and say, "Senior brother, how can this brat be worthy of you personally taking action? Let me teach him a lesson." This person was also an inner disciple of the Ju Mountain sect. Although his strength was far from Shen Ming's, his cultivation had also reached the great circle of the channel opening stage. After hearing this person's words, Shen Ming pondered for a moment, then put on an act and said, "Okay, but don't kill him. Keep him alive." Thinking that this person could teach Xiao Chen a lesson, the man walked up to Xiao Chen, unsheathed his sword, and sneered. "True dragon of the Xiao family, you can only show off in this secular world. If you were in our Ju Mountain sect, you would be nothing more than an ordinary disciple. Today, let me teach you how to behave." As soon as he finished speaking, the disciple stabbed out with his sword, the tip of the sword pointing directly at Xiao Chen's throat. Seeing this, Shao Qing immediately shouted, "Chun-Er, be careful." He was very confident in his son. However, a sect disciple was definitely not someone like Ma Yuan could compare to. The sect had a unique advantage in cultivation. In addition, those who could become a sect disciple were all strictly selected. Therefore, the combat power of a sect disciple was stronger than an ordinary warrior in the same realm. He was not confident that Shao Chen could take this sword. However, as soon as Shao Qing finished speaking, everyone saw Shao Chen use 2 fingers to catch the disciple's sword. Shao Chen was able to block the disciple's attack with just 2 fingers. Everyone was in disbelief when they saw this. However, before they could recover from their shock, Shao Chen had already kicked out and sent the disciple flying. It was still one move. Even though he was facing a sect disciple, Shao Chen still defeated him in one move. He defeated this person cleanly. Seeing this, the other 6 Ju Mountain sect disciples who followed Shen Ming attacked at the same time and shouted angrily, "Kid, you're courting death. How dare you hurt a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect? No one can protect you today." They were simply shameless. 6 people ganged up on Shao Chen. In response, Shao Chen said sarcastically, "Ju Mountain sect, you really have the boldness of a large sect. Bullying with numbers, yet you can still make it sound so dignified. I've really learned today, you're courting death." Hearing Shao Chen's words, the 6 Ju Mountain sect disciples shouted angrily at the same time and attacked together. Shao Chen's storage ring flashed with light as he was surrounded by the 6 of them. Then, a silver-white longsword appeared in his hand. Holding the sword, Shao Chen's aura instantly became fierce. If Shao Chen was a sharp sword that had not been unsheathed before, then he was now showing his edge. Storage ring. Seeing that Shao Chen actually had a storage ring, Shen Ming was secretly shocked. This storage ring was not something that ordinary people could have. Forces like the Shao family, the Chun family, and the Ma family probably only had 1 or 2 storage rings in their entire family. Even in the entire Ju Mountain sect, only the elders and elite disciples like him could have their own storage rings. He didn't expect Shao Chen to actually have one. He was surprised that Shao Chen actually had a storage ring. But while Shen Ming was shocked, Shao Chen, who was facing the siege of the 6 people, had already revealed his heaven-defying side. Since childhood, Shao Chen had been called the true dragon of the Shao family. Not only was his cultivation speed heaven-defying, but his combat strength was also heaven-defying. Shao Chen had shown that he was invincible in the same realm. Of the 6 Ju Mountain sect disciples, 3 were at the Great Circle of the Channel Opening Realm, while the other 3 were at the Small Circle of the Channel Opening Realm. Such a lineup couldn't be underestimated, but in front of Shao Chen, it was still not enough. In just a single exchange, the difference between the 2 sides had already been determined. With the longsword in hand, no one knew what kind of sword technique Shao Chen was using. It was all very basic sword moves, such as stabbing, flicking, sweeping, and so on. However, these basic sword moves, which everyone had practiced before, seemed to be completely different in Shao Chen's hands. Their power was at least several times stronger. Using basic sword moves to fight the 6 inner disciples of the Ju Mountain sect, every thrust of the sword was from an extremely tricky angle, extremely fast, and extremely powerful. How is this possible? How can basic sword moves be so powerful? A Ju Mountain sect disciple exclaimed, unable to believe that basic sword moves could be so powerful. Nothing is impossible. I can only say that you guys are ignorant. Hearing the disciple's astonishment, Shao Chen indifferently replied. Then, with a sweep of his sword, he defeated the disciple. After successfully defeating one of the inner disciples, there were no surprises in the following situation. In less than a quarter of an hour, the 6 Ju Mountain sect disciples were swept away by Shao Chen. The 6 of them weren't able to take down Shao Chen even after joining forces. At this time, only Shen Ming was left on the Ju Mountain sect's side. Looking at the people lying on the ground and howling in pain, Shen Ming's face turned gloomy. At the same time, Xiao Chen indifferently said, "Let's end this boring game. If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened. But if you don't know what's good for you, the next time won't be as simple as being injured." Xiao Chen's words were obviously directed at Shen Ming. Hearing this, Shen Ming immediately became furious. What was the meaning of this? He didn't put him in his eyes at all. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 4. It had only been an hour since Xiao Chen had appeared. From beginning to end, Xiao Chen had been very indifferent, as if the Ju Mountain sect was just an ant in his eyes. He was very unhappy with Xiao Chen's attitude. Shen Ming was one of the top 10 inner disciples in the Ju Mountain sect and was deeply loved by the sect. Now, he was despised by a disciple of an aristocratic family. Shen Ming was furious. The storage ring in his hand flashed and a war knife appeared in his hand. Holding the war knife, Shen Ming strode to Xiao Chen with an undisguised murderous look in his eyes. Seeing Shen Ming's appearance, Xiao Chen gently swung his long sword to shake off the blood on the blade. Then, he pointed the tip of the sword to the ground and said indifferently, "Do you really think I don't dare to kill the people of the Ju Mountain sect?" Xiao Chen had already tried to persuade him, but Shen Ming still refused to give up. Xiao Chen gradually developed a murderous intent in his heart. It was true that the Ju Mountain sect was very strong and was known as the strongest sect in Lingshan County. Its strength was far beyond the Xiao clans. However, if Shen Ming thought that Xiao Chen did not dare to kill a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect because of this, then he was gravely mistaken. Originally, he wanted to persuade the Ju Mountain sect to retreat first and then slowly deal with the Chen and Ma families. However, it seemed that he might as well deal with the Ju Mountain sect as well. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen took the initiative to attack. The long sword in his hand fiercely pierced and the sword flashed. Facing Xiao Chen's attack, Shen Ming's eyelids twitched. He raised his blade to block. Although he successfully blocked Xiao Chen's sword, the great power still made Shen Ming unable to help but take a few steps back. The power was very great. At the same time, Shen Ming finally saw Xiao Chen's real cultivation. His face showed a touch of disbelief and his voice was full of shock. You have also broken through to the Yellow Realm." After the real fight, Shen Ming finally felt Xiao Chen's cultivation. It was the same as his, the beginning of the Yellow Realm. Although they had the same cultivation, they were 10 years apart in age. Reaching the beginning of the Yellow Realm at the age of 18 was a speed that no one in the Ju Shan sect could achieve, let alone in the Lingshan Commandery City. When he left Lingshan County 3 years ago, Xiao Chen had just broken through the channel opening realm. Now, when he returned 3 years later, Xiao Chen had already reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm. It was as disgusting as eating a fly. Previously, Shen Ming only thought that Xiao Chen was just a somewhat famous genius. But now, he was no longer a genius. He was simply a monster. Seeing the change in Shen Ming's expression, Xiao Chen said without changing his expression, "Is it surprising that an 18-year-old has reached the Yellow Realm? In the place where I'm from, there are plenty of such people." Xiao Chen's talent shocked Shen Ming. But for Xiao Chen himself, an 18-year-old who had reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm? This was not a strange thing. At least, there were many people around Xiao Chen who had reached the Yellow Realm at the age of 19 or 20. Xiao Chen attacked again as soon as he finished speaking. Despite being at the same level of training, the combat prowess of both of them was worlds apart. While fighting fiercely, Xiao Chen's face showed a touch of disappointment. "Weak, too weak. Your bladesmanship is full of flaws. Your wrist is weak. Your cultivation of the Yellow Realm is simply too weak." Being completely suppressed by Xiao Chen, Shen Ming's anger kept rising. He knew that if this continued, he would lose sooner or later. He had no choice but to take a gamble. The spiritual power in his body increased crazily. He raised his blade high above his head and fiercely chopped down. He shouted angrily, "100 Battles Blade!" He directly displayed his strongest attack, the 100 Battles Blade. This was an upper-class martial technique with great power. Martial techniques were divided into ordinary martial techniques, Xian martial techniques, earth martial techniques, and heaven martial technique. They were further divided into lower class, middle class, and upper class. The 100 Battles Blade displayed by Shen Ming was already the top ordinary martial technique. Under normal circumstances, Xian martial techniques could only be practiced by warriors who had reached the mysterious Ian realm. The highest level of martial technique that warriors of the Yellow Realm could display was an ordinary upper-class martial technique. The momentum was great. As soon as the blade light condensed, a breathtaking breath spread out. The surrounding people's faces changed, except for Xiao Qin, who was still calm. The power of an upper-class martial technique should not be underestimated. However, Shen Ming obviously had not practiced this set of martial technique to perfection. At most, he had just reached the beginning. Martial techniques were not only divided into levels. According to the degree of mastery of martial techniques, they were divided into 4 levels: beginner, expert, perfection, and perfection. For the same set of martial skills, the higher the degree of mastery, the greater the power. Although the 100 Battles Absolute Saber technique that Shen Ming was using was a set of upper-rank martial skill, it was a pity that he had only mastered it to the elementary rank. An upper-class martial technique that had just reached the beginning realm was also vulnerable in Xiao Chen's eyes. Xiao Chen had no intention of dodging. The long sword in his hand suddenly emitted a white light. Then, the tip of the sword swept across. The white sword light covered the sky and directly enveloped Shen Ming. At the same time, Shen Ming's 100 Battles Blade was instantly defeated. The Perfection Realm, a perfect upper-class martial technique. Xiao Chen also displayed a set of upper-class martial technique, but it had already reached the Perfection Realm. Martial techniques of the same level, but one was at the beginner realm, and the other was at the Perfection Realm. Naturally, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. After easily defeating Shen Ming's 100 Battles Blade, Xiao Chen sheathed his sword and murmured softly, "Shadow kill." As Xiao Chen's voice fell, the sword shadows that filled the sky gradually disappeared. Then, a corpse covered in wounds fell from the sky. It was Shen Ming, who had been enveloped by the shadow kill. Just as Xiao Chen said, the next time would not be as simple as being injured. Indeed, this time, Xiao Chen did not hold back and directly ended Shen Ming's life. Since he did not want to leave, then he might as well stay forever. With a dull thud, Shen Ming's corpse fell heavily to the ground. Following this dull thud, everyone's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Dead. Shen Ming, one of the top 10 inner disciples of the Ju Mountain sect, was dead. And Xiao Chen actually dared to kill a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect, and not just any disciple. Everyone looked at Shen Ming as if they had seen a ghost. It was eerily quiet. After a while, Chen Muxue came back to her senses. She looked away from Shen Ming's body, and said to Xiao Chen in disbelief, You actually dared to kill Shen Ming. Do you know Shen Ming's status in the Ju Mountain sect? You're finished, and the Xiao family is also finished. The Ju Mountain sect will never let you go, and the Xiao family. Chen Muxue never expected that Xiao Chen would dare to kill Shen Ming. After all, the Xiao family definitely did not dare to offend Shen Ming's status. An ordinary disciple might still have some leeway, but the Ju Mountain sect would definitely not let the matter rest, as it was one of the top 10 inner disciples. Facing Chen Muxue's shock, Xiao Chen did not mind and replied indifferently. Ju Mountain sect? So what? Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 5. Xiao Chen's indifferent reply made Chen Muxue so angry that she laughed. Fine. You may be arrogant now, but I'd like to see if you can still be so arrogant when the elder of the Ju Mountain sect arrives. I forgot to tell you that the Jew Mountain sect has specially sent an elder to accompany you. This elder is now in the Lingshan Commandery Prince's residence. In order to destroy the Shao family, Chen Muxue had made thorough preparations. She had even asked Shen Ming to invite an elder of the Jew Mountain sect to accompany them, just in case. However, Chen Muxue did not know that the elder accompanying them was actually Shen Ming's grandfather, Shen Gaoyuan. After killing Shen Ming, Shao Chen's death was certain. Hearing Chen Muxue's words, everyone in the Shao family looked worried, especially Shao Qing. He hurried to Shao Chen's side and said to him, "Shao Chen, hurry up and leave before the elder of the Jew Mountain sect arrives." He wanted Shao Chen to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the elder of the Jew Mountain sect arrived, he would not be able to leave. He was anxious. However, just as Shao Qing finished speaking, a cold voice came from outside the Shao family's gate. "Do you think you can leave?" The voice was filled with coldness. Then, an old man with a head full of white hair walked into the Shao family's residence, followed closely by the Lingshan Commandery Prince. The old man was naturally the elder of the Jew Mountain sect, Shen Gaoyuan. The Lingshan Commandery Prince's name was Zhang Chong. At this moment, he was following behind Shen Gaoyuan with a complicated expression. They did not expect Shen Gaoyuan to arrive so quickly. Seeing Shen Gaoyuan appear, the Chen family and the Ma family greeted him respectfully. Elder Shen, they were extremely polite to Shen Gaoyuan. They had no choice. He was an elder of the Jew Mountain sect. Not to mention the three great families, even the Lingshan Commandery Prince's residence did not dare to offend him. Shen Gaoyuan walked into the Shao family's mansion with an arrogant expression. Originally, Shen Gaoyuan had only come here because too much time had passed. He had already lost his patience and wanted to personally see how things were progressing. He did not know that Shen Ming had been killed by Shao Chen. However, when Shen Gaoyuan saw Shen Ming's corpse, his body immediately froze on the spot. Without saying a word, he walked over to Shen Ming's corpse. His turbid eyes were filled with disbelief as he stared at his grandson's corpse. He remained silent for a long time. After a long while, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Shen Gaoyuan's body. To be able to become an elder of the Jew Mountain sect, Shen Gaoyuan's cultivation had already reached the earth-clear mirror level. His cultivation was far superior to everyone present. Shen Gaoyuan was furious. Shen Ming was Shen Gaoyuan's only relative. He had been by Shen Gaoyuan's side since he was young. Now that he saw Shen Ming being killed, how could Shen Gaoyuan not be angry? Who killed Ming? Who? Shen Gaoyuan bellowed as he stared at Shen Ming's corpse. Sensing Shen Gaoyuan's terrifying killing intent, the Lingshan Commandery Prince's expression was complicated. He did not know what to say. He knew that Shen Gaoyuan would definitely not let this matter rest. Compared to Shen Gaoyuan's anger, everyone in the Shao family was ashen. Originally, Shao Chen's appearance had brought them hope. However, Shen Gaoyuan's killing intent had pushed them to the bottom of the valley. Shen Gaoyuan was an elder of the Jew Mountain sect. He was one of the strongest people in the entire Lingshan Commandery. How could the Shao family withstand the anger of such a strong person? Chun-Er listened to father. Leave quickly. Where there's life, there's hope, Shao Qing whispered to Shao Chen. He had no intention of fighting Shen Gaoyuan head-on. The two of them were not on the same level. There was no way they could fight. The only thing they could do now was to ensure that Shao Chen left safely. However, just as Shao Qing gestured for Shao Chen to leave quickly, Chen Muxue spoke first. Elder Shen, senior brother, was killed by Shao Chen from the Shao family. Shao Chen? Hearing Chen Muxue's words, Shen Gaoyuan was stunned. The true dragon of the Shao family? He's back? The genius that the Jew Mountain sect had been looking for and was prepared to make an exception to accept as a disciple. He's back after 3 years? I didn't expect Shao Chen to return at this time. But so what? He killed my grandson. Even if he's the king of heaven, he still has to die. Without needing anyone to identify him, Shen Gaoyuan's gaze fell directly on Xiao Chen. The murderous intent in his eyes was like two sharp swords that pierced Xiao Chen. Being stared at by Shen Gaoyuan, Xiao Chen didn't dodge. He didn't panic either. His expression was still calm. Walking slowly to Shen Gaoyuan, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "I've already given him a chance. Unfortunately, he didn't take it," as if he was talking about an extremely ordinary matter. His expression was indifferent and his tone was calm. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Shen Gaoyuan was completely enraged. Good, good, good. What a true dragon of the Xiao family. Don't tell me you think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some talent? Today, this old man will tell you that in front of me, your laughable talent is nothing more than a floating cloud. You killed Ming'er. I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Xiao Chen didn't show the slightest fear. This once again ignited Shen Gaoyuan's anger. He had already decided that no matter how talented Xiao Chen was, he would kill him today. His murderous intent was bursting. Witnessing the scene of Xiao Chen and Shen Gaoyuan staring at each other, and seeing Xiao Chen's calm gaze as usual, the people from the Chen family and the Ma family were puzzled. Where did this guy get his confidence from? After all, the person in front of him wasn't a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect, but an elder of the Ju Mountain sect. An Earth Mirror powerhouse could shake the entire Lingshan commandery with a stomp of his foot. They didn't understand where Xiao Chen got his confidence from to face Shen Gaoyuan. Even though Xiao Chen's cultivation was now at the beginning of the Yellow Realm, Shen Gaoyuan was a figure who had practiced for hundreds of years. A casual slap was enough to kill Xiao Chen. Was he stupid? Was he naive? Or did he really have the confidence to contend with Shen Gaoyuan? Just as everyone was puzzled, outside the gate of the Xiao family, several figures strode in. There were a total of 7 people, both men and women. They were about 20 years old, and each of them had an imposing appearance. The men were handsome, and the women were beautiful. As soon as these 7 young men and women entered the Xiao family, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. It was not difficult to judge from the temperament of these 7 young men that they were definitely not ordinary people. How could ordinary people have such temperament? No one knew the identities of these 7 people, nor did they know why they were here. But soon, the leader of the 7, a young man in a golden robe, saw Xiao Chen and quickly walked up to him with a smile. "Junior Xiao Chen, I've finally found you." Since he was familiar with Xiao Chen also smiled at the young man in the golden robe. "Senior Mo, I haven't been home for 3 years. Yes. We know you're anxious. Hey, what happened?" The young man in the golden robe chatted with Xiao Chen very casually. Halfway through the conversation, he saw Shen Ming's body and asked Xiao Chen doubtfully what had happened. "Nothing. I killed an inner disciple of the Ju Mountain sect." Facing the young man in the golden robe, Xiao Chen replied casually. Hearing Xiao Chen's answer, everyone looked at him with disdain. "Who told you to be so pretentious? Let's see who can save you later." They all felt that Xiao Chen was a bit too arrogant. However, no one expected that after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the young man in the golden robe actually said without a care, "An inner disciple of the Ju Mountain sect. What's the big deal about killing him? Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 6. They didn't care that Xiao Chen had killed a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect at all. Not only the golden-robed young man, but the other 6 people were also the same. It was as if in their eyes, so what if a disciple of the Ju Mountain sect was killed? Upon hearing the golden-robed young man's words, Chen Muxue, who was standing to the side, was immediately enraged. Anyone could tell that these 7 people were probably Xiao Chen's friends. What was most unacceptable to Chen Muxue was that 2 of the girls were even prettier than her. The thought of Xiao Chen being accompanied by such stunning women made Chen Muxue feel irritable for no reason. Looking coldly at the golden-robed young man, Chen Muxue said coldly, "Do you think that Xiao Chen killed an ordinary disciple? The one he killed is one of the top 10 inner disciples of the Ju Mountain sect. Moreover, he is the grandson of Elder Shin." Chen Muxue wanted to see the panic on the faces of Xiao Chen and the others, but she was obviously disappointed. Hearing her words, the golden-robed young man glanced at her indifferently and said indifferently, "So what if he is one of the top 10 inner disciples?" There was no trace of panic at all. As the golden-robed young man's words fell, before Chen Muxue could reply, Shen Gaoyuan shouted angrily. "Arrogant boy!" After saying that, Shen Gaoyuan directly slapped his palm toward Xiao Chen and the golden-robed young man. Shen Gaoyuan, who had an earth mirror cultivation base, attacked directly. Xiao Chen and the golden-robed young man naturally couldn't resist. However, just when everyone thought that the two of them were doomed, Zhang Chang, who had been motionless, suddenly attacked. Zhang Chang tried his best to block Shen Gaoyuan's attack, but because his cultivation base was only at the mysterious Ian complete stage, he was also seriously injured. Zhang Chang disregarded his own safety and blocked the attack for Xiao Chen and the golden-robed young man. Seeing Zhang Chang's action, everyone was puzzled. What happened to Zhang Chang? Wasn't he on Shen Gaoyuan's side? Why did he suddenly protect Xiao Chen and the others? Everyone looked at Zhang Chang in confusion. They didn't know why he would suddenly help Xiao Chen. This was completely different from what they had agreed on. Zhang Chang ignored everyone's doubtful gazes and knelt down on both knees. "Greetings, Your Highness Crown Prince." The Crown Prince? Hearing Zhang Chang's words, everyone was stunned. What was going on? Also, Zhang Chang addressed the golden-robed young man as His Highness the Crown Prince, so his identity, the identity of the young man in the golden robe, was obvious. In the entire Lingfeng country, there was only one Crown Prince, and that was Mo Jie, the third son of the current emperor. With an indifferent expression, Mo Jie glanced at the kneeling Zhang Chang and said, "Get up." Hearing Mo Jie's words, Zhang Chang stood up and stood behind Mo Jie respectfully. Previously, when Mo Jie and the others first appeared, Zhang Chang recognized Mo Jie. He didn't expect the Crown Prince to appear here and even know Xiao Chen. After that, when Shen Gaoyuan attacked, Zhang Chang didn't hesitate to attack. What a joke! If something happened to Mo Jie here, Zhang Chang would definitely be implicated. The current Crown Prince. After Mo Jie's identity was exposed, everyone's gaze became extremely complicated. Originally, they thought that Xiao Chen was dead for sure, but who would have thought that Mo Jie would pop up? Things could be said to be full of twists and turns. Even the Xiao family felt like they were in a dream. Xiao Chen actually knew the current Crown Prince. Everyone was stunned by Mo Jie's identity, including Shen Gaoyuan. At this moment, his old face was gloomy as he stared at Xiao Chen. He didn't understand. Even if the true dragon of the Xiao family was a genius, how could he come into contact with someone like Mo Jie? And today, with Mo Jie present, would Shen Gaoyuan still dare to attack Xiao Chen? Obviously, he didn't dare to offend Mo Jie. Otherwise, a single word from Mo Jie was enough to completely destroy the Ju Mountain sect. Shen Gaoyuan wasn't willing to let Xiao Chen go just like that, but with Mo Jie present, he had no choice but to give up. He clenched his fists tightly. It was obvious that Shen Gaoyuan was in an extremely bad mood at this moment. Just as Shen Gaoyuan was feeling extremely depressed, Xiao Chen slowly walked up to him and said indifferently, "Before tomorrow night, I hope to get the Ju Mountain sect's attitude. Also, if the Ju Mountain sect dares to harm the Xiao family in the future, don't blame me for destroying the Ju Mountain sect." Xiao Chen's tone was very calm, but his words were very arrogant. "Destroy the Ju Mountain sect? Who do you think you are? If Mo Jie wasn't present, Shen Gaoyuan would have beheaded you." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Shen Gaoyuan was almost on the verge of exploding. This was the first time he had been treated like this by a junior. However, just as Shun Gaoyuan's anger was about to explode, Xiao Chun took out a token from his storage ring. The token was silver in color and had the symbol of a long sword on it. Upon seeing this token, Shun Gaoyuan's body shook violently and he said in disbelief, You are a disciple of the East Sword Pavilion? Shun Gaoyuan recognized at a glance that this was a disciple's token of the East Sword Pavilion. The anger in his heart instantly receded and was replaced by a deep sense of fear. The East Sword Pavilion was the strongest sect in the surrounding hundreds of thousands of miles. Even the royal family of the Lingfeng Kingdom was just an ant in front of the East Sword Pavilion that could be easily destroyed. It was a colossus that surpassed the royal family of the Lingfeng Kingdom. It was no wonder that Shun Gaoyuan had such a reaction after seeing this token. It was no exaggeration to say that the East Sword Pavilion was the true ruler of the surrounding hundreds of thousands of miles. Its influence spread across the 10 great empires, and the Lingfeng Kingdom was just one of them. Its influence was enormous. Moreover, the East Sword Pavilion had extremely strict requirements for selecting disciples. Every one of those who could enter the East Sword Pavilion was a 1-in-a-million genius. If they were placed in the Ju Mountain sect, they could become a top disciple of the sect. From this, it could be seen how strong Xiao Chen's talent was that he could be chosen by the East Sword Pavilion. It was a little chaotic. If Mo Jie's existence only made Shun Gaoyuan depressed, then Xiao Chen's identity made him fearful. Not to mention killing Shin Ming, even if Xiao Chen directly killed his way to the Ju Mountain sect, the upper echelons of the Ju Mountain sect would not dare to do anything to Xiao Chen. The consequences of killing a disciple of the East Sword Pavilion were not something that the Ju Mountain sect could bear. Shun Gaoyuan's expression was dull. After a while, he seemed to have suddenly realized something. He involuntarily looked at Mo Jie and the others behind Xiao Chen. Just now they addressed Xiao Chen as junior brother. In that case, he had already guessed that they were disciples of the East Sword Pavilion and had accompanied Xiao Chen this time. Shun Gaoyuan took a deep breath and took the initiative to salute Xiao Chen under the shocked gazes of the crowd. Little friend Xiao Chen, this matter is the fault of our Ju Mountain sect. Don't worry, before tomorrow, our sect master will personally come to apologize. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 7. Shun Gaoyuan actually took the initiative to lower his head to Xiao Chen. Seeing this, the people from the Chen and Ma families were all stunned. Chen Muxue directly sat on the ground. She could not understand why Shun Gaoyuan, an elder of the Ju Mountain sect, would take the initiative to lower his head to Xiao Chen and act so humbly. Xiao Chen did not pay attention to the changes in the Chen and Ma families. He said to Shun Gaoyuan indifferently, "There is no need to apologize personally. I only hope that the Ju Mountain sect will not cause trouble for the Xiao family in the future. That is for sure. If anyone dares to harm the Xiao family in the future, my Ju Mountain sect will be the first to not let them off." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Shun Gaoyuan immediately solemnly promised. He believed that the Ju Mountain sect would absolutely not dare to cause trouble for the Xiao family. After letting Shun Gaoyuan take the group of Ju Mountain sect disciples and Shin Ming's corpse away, Xiao Chen turned his head to look at the heads of the Chen and Ma families and said, "Why, do you still need me to send you off?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the Chen and Ma families did not dare to stay any longer. They did not know how terrifying the Eastern Sword Pavilion was because at their level, they were still unable to come into contact with the Eastern Sword Pavilion. However, after seeing with their own eyes that even Shun Gaoyuan was scared to the point of leaving, they naturally did not dare to have any improper thoughts. Under Xiao Chen's command, they immediately left with their families. Soon, the originally noisy Xiao family quieted down. The people from the Ju Mountain sect left, the people from the Chen and Ma families also left. In the end, Zhang Chang also left under Mo Jie's instructions. However, before he left, Zhang Chang repeatedly apologized to Xiao Qing and begged for Xiao Qing's forgiveness. The crisis that was originally enough to destroy the entire Shao family was easily resolved after Shao Chen's appearance. After settling Mo Jie and the others, Shao Chen and Shao Qing went to his mother's residence. Shao Chen's mother was called Bai Ruyue. When she saw Shao Chen, Bai Ruyue excitedly hugged Shao Chen. It was easy to imagine how much Bai Ruyue missed her son, who had been away from home for 3 years. The mother and son hugged each other tightly while Shao Qing looked at them with a smile. After a long time, Bai Ruyue finally let go of Shao Chen. The family of 3 came to the stone bench in the courtyard and sat down. Bai Ruyue kept looking at Shao Chen. In 3 years, Shao Chen had grown from a young boy to a handsome young man. Bai Ruyue's mother's mother, Bai Ruyue. There was no news of Shao Chen for 3 years, so Bai Ruyue said with some blame. Hearing his mother's words, Shao Chen smiled and said, "Mother, I'm back now. Moreover, the rules of the East Sword Pavilion are very strict. Registered disciples are not allowed to contact the outside world. I came back this time because I finally became an outer disciple and was able to go out." It wasn't that Shao Chen didn't want to contact his family, but that he couldn't. In front of his parents, Shao Chen didn't hide anything. He told them everything that had happened in the past 3 years and everything about the East Sword Pavilion. Along with Shao Chen's narration, Shao Qing and Shao Qing listened with great interest. After leaving Lingshan County City 3 years ago, Shao Chen first came to the Lingfeng country's capital. By chance, he met the Crown Prince, Mo Jie. Then, the 2 of them entered the East Sword Pavilion together and became registered disciples. In the East Sword Pavilion, the hierarchy was extremely strict. The disciples were divided into core disciples, inner disciples, outer disciples, and registered disciples. No matter how talented you were or what your background was, when you entered the East Sword Pavilion, you could only start as a registered disciple. Then, you could rely on your own efforts to break through to a higher level of disciple. Of course, the higher the level, the more cultivation resources you would receive. At the same time, your status would also be higher. During the period of being a registered disciple, you were not allowed to leave the East Sword Pavilion and could not contact the outside world. Only after becoming an outer disciple would you have a chance to visit your family. Because of this, Shao Chen didn't contact his family for 3 whole years. Don't think that the East Sword Pavilion's rules were unsatisfactory. The East Sword Pavilion only made this rule so that registered disciples could devote themselves to cultivation when they first entered the suzerain. As everyone knew, when everyone first entered the suzerain, there would be an explosive period. This explosive period must be grasped well. Also, from the channel opening stage to the Yellow Realm, this was a threshold. The earlier one broke through the Yellow Realm, the more beneficial it would be for his future cultivation. For example, if an 18-year-old and a 28-year-old both broke through the Yellow Realm, they might seem to be in the same realm, but in the future, the one who reached the Yellow Realm at the age of 18 would definitely have an advantage. Shao Chen told his parents everything that had happened in the past 3 years. After listening to Shao Chen's narration, Shao Qing and his wife realized that so many things had happened to Shao Chen in the past 3 years. They looked at their son with pride. The young boy had now grown up. Not only had he become an outer disciple of the East Sword Pavilion, but he had also broken through to the Yellow Realm at the age of 18. This son of theirs was the pride of both of them. After telling his story, Shao Chen said to Shao Qing, "Father, do you have any thoughts of leaving Lingshan County? Senior brother Mo has already said that if you want, the Shao clan can go to the capital. Senior brother Mo will arrange everything there." After asking Shao Qing if he had any thoughts of leaving Lingshan County, Shao Qing was silent for a moment. Then, he smiled and shook his head. "Chen, there's no need to go to the capital. Your mother and I are already used to Lingshan County. Moreover, the capital is a place of trouble. Even with the Crown Prince's help, I really don't want to fall into the quagmire of the capital. Your mother and I have very simple thoughts. As long as you are well, nothing else matters. I don't have much ambition. Shao Qing had no intention of leading the Shao clan out of Lingshan County. Shao Chen naturally wouldn't force his father. It was fine if he didn't want to leave. After all, after this battle, no one in Lingshan County would dare to find trouble with the Shao clan. In this way, Shao Chen would have no worries and could focus on his cultivation in the East Sword Pavilion in the future. After telling his story, Shao Chen stayed by his parents' side for the next few days. After 3 years of separation, the family cherished this short time together very much. The family was happy and harmonious. During this time, Shao Chen was also led by Shao Qing to meet some of the elders of the Shao clan. At the same time, he also gave some pointers to the younger generation of the Shao clan. At the same time, the Ju Mountain sect did not go back on their words. The next day, the sect leader of the Ju Mountain sect personally came to apologize and declared that the Shao clan and the Ju Mountain sect would be allies in the future. Moreover, the Ju Mountain sect would also give the Shao clan 10 quotas every year. As long as they were in the younger generation of the Shao clan, they would be able to enter the Ju Mountain sect to cultivate without any conditions. They would be treated the same as the disciples of the Ju Mountain sect. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 8. It had to be said that the Ju Mountain sect was determined to tie themselves to the Shao clan. The reason was very simple. Shao Chen was an outer disciple of the Eastern Sword Pavilion. The Ju Mountain sect knew very well that as long as Shao Chen was alive, the Shao clan would only get better and better. Therefore, tying themselves to the Shao clan at this time was the best choice for the Ju Mountain sect. Not only did the Ju Mountain sect give the Shao clan 10 disciples every year, but they also expelled Chen Muxue from the sect to give Shao Chen an explanation. Originally, Chen Muxue dared to attack the Shao clan because she joined the Ju Mountain sect. Now that she was expelled from the sect, the Chen clan could no longer stay in Lingshan Prefecture City. He did not care about the situation of the Chen and Ma clans. In Shao Chen's opinion, these two clans were no longer a threat to the Shao clan because they had decided to leave Lingshan Prefecture City. Not only because of the Ju Mountain sect, but also because of the contribution of the Lingshan Prefecture Prince, Zhang Chang. With the departure of the Chen and Ma clans, the Shao clan could be said to be the only major clan in Lingshan Prefecture City. Even the Prefecture Prince's mansion gave the Shao clan face. Of course, this was all because of Shao Chen. Chen Muxue left Lingshan Prefecture City dejectedly. Just as the Chen clan was leaving Lingshan Prefecture City, Chen Muxue met a beautiful middle-aged woman. The woman was very beautiful, especially her eyes, which seemed to be able to steal one's soul. She could tell at a glance that Chen Muxue was naturally seductive. It was just that her seductive nature had not yet developed, so it was not obvious. Therefore, the woman had the idea of taking her as a disciple. The woman came from the 10,000 Immortals House, which was also a huge organization. It was so powerful that it could compete with the East Sword Pavilion. Without any hesitation, Chen Muxue immediately became the woman's disciple. Chen Muxue, who was originally in complete despair, was taken away by the woman. Once again, extreme hatred burned in her heart. Shao Chen was a hurdle in Chen Muxue's heart that she would never be able to overcome. Before she made Shao Chen regret, Chen Muxue's obsession in her heart would never disappear. Shao Chen did not know what had happened to Chen Muxue and stayed in the Shao family for 7 days. On this day, he was also preparing to leave. After all, time was limited. He still had to return to the Eastern Sword Pavilion to report. If he was delayed, it would be troublesome. When Shao Chen wanted to leave, Shao Qing and Bai Ruyue were naturally very reluctant to part with him. However, they also knew that Shao Chen could not stay in the Shao family forever. The eagle would spread its wings one day, and the hidden dragon would come out of the abyss one day. After leaving behind many cultivation resources and medicinal pills for his parents, Shao Chen, Mo Jie, and the other disciples of the Shao clan sent them off. They rode on their scarlet flame horses and left Lingshan County City, rushing towards the Eastern Sword Pavilion. As she watched Shao Chen's back slowly disappear from her sight, Bai Ruiyue could no longer hold back her tears. She did not know how long it would be before they could reunite again. Shao Qing comforted her in a gentle voice as he knew that Bai Ruiyue was reluctant to part. The hidden dragon will come out of the abyss one day, and the eagle will spread its wings one day. Chen Er should go to the Eastern Sword Pavilion. We should be proud to have a son like him. Hearing Shao Qing's words, Bai Ruiyue nodded slightly. After bidding farewell to his parents, Shao Chen and the rest rushed towards the Eastern Sword Pavilion without stopping. There was still half a month before the outer sect ceremony. Shao Chen and the rest had to rush back to the Eastern Sword Pavilion in half a month's time. Otherwise, they would lose the opportunity to enter the outer sect. The distance from Lingshan County City to the Eastern Sword Pavilion was not short. It took a total of 13 days for the group to arrive at the Eastern Sword Pavilion. The Eastern Sword Pavilion was located in the Green Cloud mountain range. This place had already left the territory of Lingfeng country. As far as the eye could see, there was a continuous mountain range crisscrossing. The Eastern Sword Pavilion was located at the core of the Yunlu mountain range. They returned to the outer sect disciple area of the Eastern Sword Pavilion. There were still 2 days before the outer sect ceremony began. Everyone finally made it. Shao Qin returned to his residence. This was the place where he stayed when he was an outer sect disciple. 2 people shared a room, and he and Mo Jie lived together. Mo Jie lay down on the bed and took a deep breath. We're finally back. In 2 days, we will be able to enter the outer sect and become a true outer sect disciple. The registration system of the Eastern Sword Pavilion was very strict. Outer sect disciple, to put it bluntly, was not considered an official disciple of the Eastern Sword Pavilion. Only after becoming an outer sect disciple would they be considered to have been truly recognized by the Eastern Sword Pavilion. Hearing Mo Jie's words, Shao Qin smiled. Senior brother, don't be too happy. The outer sect ceremony still requires us to choose a sword academy. If we aren't chosen by the Sword Academy, we still won't be able to become an outer sect disciple. There were a total of 9 sword academies in the Eastern Sword Pavilion's outer sect. Every outer sect disciple had to choose a sword academy from among them. Of course, it wasn't just a one-sided choice. When choosing a sword academy, it also depended on whether the sword academy's head elder liked you or not. If he didn't like you, then you naturally wouldn't be able to become an outer sect disciple. There were strong and weak sword academies. The weak sword academies had lower requirements, and of course, the cultivation environment was obviously worse. The strong sword academies naturally had higher requirements, but the cultivation environment was the best. Therefore, when choosing a sword academy after becoming an outer sect disciple, it depended on the individual's choice. One shouldn't choose the strongest sword academy even though they clearly didn't have any talent. If they were rejected by the Sword Academy, then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. They had to know their place and not bite off more than they could chew. This was one of the goals of the Eastern Sword Pavilion's higher-ups. Hearing Shao Chen's words, Mo Jie smiled. Junior brother, which sword academy do you intend to choose? With your talent, I'm afraid you've already made your decision. It must be the first academy. The 9 sword academies were ranked according to their strength. The first academy was the strongest and had the best cultivation environment. Therefore, almost all the outer sect disciples wanted to enter the first academy to cultivate. However, the first academy had always only accepted elite. In the Eastern Sword Pavilion, where geniuses gathered, the disciples of the first academy were the geniuses of the geniuses. The difficulty of entering the first academy was much higher than that of the other sword academies. If one didn't have the best talent, it was best not to choose the first academy. This was a popular saying among the outer sect disciples because it was a waste of time. Every time the outer sect ceremony began, the first academy would recruit the fewest disciples. Sometimes it wouldn't even recruit a single person. It was better to have nothing than to have something substandard. This was the requirement of the first academy. He had already guessed Xiao Chen's choice. Xiao Chen had reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm at the age of 18. His talent was recognized as the strongest among this batch of outer sect disciples. Hearing Mo Jie's words, Xiao Chen smiled and didn't answer. However, he had already made up his mind. The first academy was Xiao Chen's goal. He didn't care how high the requirements of the first academy were, nor did he care how fierce the competition was. Since there was a chance, he would naturally choose the best. This was what Xiao Chen thought in his heart. They had already made up their minds. Everyone was patiently waiting for the day when the outer door ceremony would begin. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, when the sky had just lit up, the nominal disciple area was already bustling with noise and excitement. All the nominal disciples who met the requirements went to the peak where the outer door was located. Please collect recommend reward. Chapter 9. The outer gate of the East Sword Pavilion occupied a total of 9 peaks. Each peak was occupied by a sword. The first step of today's ceremony was to choose a sword academy. All registered disciples who met the requirements would climb the corresponding peak according to the sword academy they had chosen. After passing the test, they would be able to enter the academy. Thousands of registered disciples rushed towards the 9 peaks of the outer yard. It was undeniable that the East Sword Pavilion was able to become the absolute overlord within a few 100,000 miles for a reason. Although they were only registered disciples, their cultivations had already reached the Yellow Realm. Moreover, they were all under the age of 25 years old. This was the minimum requirement of the East Sword Pavilion. One had to reach the Yellow Realm before the age of 25. Otherwise, one would not even be qualified to become an outer disciple. Shen Ming was already one of the top 10 inner disciples in the Ju Mountain sect, but he had only reached the Yellow Realm at the age of 28. Even so, he was considered a top genius in the Ju Mountain sect. However, in the East Sword Pavilion, he did not even have the opportunity to enter the outer gate. There was indeed a huge difference. The East Sword Pavilion was indeed a gathering place for geniuses. The young talents of the surrounding 10 empires were all proud to be able to enter the East Sword Pavilion. Together with Mo Jie and the others, Xiao Chen also rushed to the 9 peaks of the outer gate. Along the way, many registered disciples unconsciously looked at Xiao Chen. It could not be helped. Xiao Chen had reached the Yellow Realm at the age of 18. His talent made him the most dazzling existence in this batch of registered disciples. Which academy do you think Xiao Chen will choose? Of course, he will choose Astral One. He reached the Yellow Realm at the age of 18. He has already met the requirements of Astral One. I don't think so. The requirements of Astral One are too harsh. Although Xiao Chen's cultivation speed is very fast, it will still be difficult for him to enter Astral One. Don't say these useless things. We have no chance in Astral One. I plan to choose Astral 8. I hope I can pass. Many people were secretly watching Xiao Chen and whispering. Facing the attention of the crowd, Xiao Chen's face was calm. Along the way to the foot of the 9 peaks of the outer gate, Xiao Chen smiled at Mo Jie and the others. Brothers and sisters, see you in the outer gate. Okay, see you in the outer gate. Brother Xiao Chen, don't embarrass us. You must pass the exam of Astral One. They were the 7 people who had followed Xiao Chen back to Lingshan Commandery. After nodding at the crowd, Xiao Chen headed straight for Astral One's peak. Unlike the peaks of the other academies, Xiao Chen was the only one on the path to Astral One's peak. It was obvious that Xiao Chen was the only one who had chosen Astral One among his batch of in-name disciples. As they watched Xiao Chen head to Astral One's peak, many people had looks of worship on their faces. Astral 1 was the strongest sword school in the outer gate, and every disciple there was a genius among geniuses. It was also rumored that the status of Astral 1's disciples in the sect was not any lower than that of an ordinary inner disciple. Their cultivation resources were also distributed according to the standards of an ordinary inner disciple. They envied Astral 1's cultivation environment, but it was useless. Ordinary geniuses would never be able to enter Astral 1. Even if they were lucky enough to enter, it would be very difficult for them to survive. After all, birds of a feather flock together. If you placed a sheep in a group of lions, the result would be obvious. Xiao Chen ignored everyone's gazes as he headed to Astral 1's peak. The path of martial arts was a lonely one, and Xiao Chen had already experienced this. When he was young, Xiao Chen had already reached the meridian opening realm when his peers were still in the foundation establishment realm. His peers could not keep up with Xiao Chen's footstep. This was why Xiao Chen had chosen to go out and train by himself at the age of 15. If he continued to stay in the Xiao family, it would only hinder his own progress. At the foot of Astral 1's mountain, Mo Jie sighed as he watched Xiao Chen's lonely figure. I don't know how much longer we can keep up with junior brother Xiao Chen. Perhaps it won't be long before we can only look up to him. Xiao Chen's progress was too fast, so fast that even a genius like Mo Jie could not catch up. When she heard Mo Jie's words, the beautiful girl who had spoken earlier smiled and said, "How can our Lingfeng country's crown prince be so humble? Junior Xiao Chen's progress is very fast, so we have to work even harder. We don't need to catch up to him, but it's fine as long as we don't fall too far behind him. I don't want to have to look up to junior Xiao Chen from afar." The girl's name was Qin Shuru, and she had just turned 20 this year. Her talent was definitely not weak, but there was still a gap between her and Xiao Chen's. Qin Shuru's eyes were filled with determination as she spoke. When Mo Jie heard her words, he shook his head with a bitter smile. They all knew that Qin Shuru had a crush on Xiao Chen, so if she had to watch as Xiao Chen walked further and further away while she could only look up to him, Qin Shuru would definitely find it hard to accept. Xiao Chen did not know what Mo Jie and the others were thinking as he walked by himself. Soon, he reached the peak of Astral 1's mountain. In front of the gate, a man and a woman wearing Astral 1's disciple robes stopped Xiao Chen. As Astral 1's disciples, their outer disciple robes were different from the robes of the other 8 academies in order to show their status. The robes of the other 8 academies had a silver longsword embroidered on the chest area, but Astral 1's robes had a golden longsword embroidered on them. Just by looking at the embroidery, one could tell whether or not one was from Astral 1. If you're over 20 years old, then leave. Astral 1 does not accept disciples over the age of 20, the male disciple said indifferently when he saw Xiao Chen slowly walking over. The first requirement was extremely strict. Astral 1 only accepted people under the age of 20. In other words, if one wanted to enter Astral 1, they had to break through to the Yellow Realm before the age of 20. This alone was enough to stop 99% of the geniuses. Xiao Chen did not care about the male disciples' attitude. He stopped and bowed to the 2 of them. Senior brothers and sisters, junior brother Xiao Chen just turned 18 this year. When they heard Xiao Chen's words, the 2 of them were obviously stunned. An 18-year-old Yellow Realm warrior was rare in Astral 1. Their expressions immediately relaxed, and the female disciple smiled at Xiao Chen. "So you're junior brother Xiao Chen. We were right. You really did choose Astral 1. Please add, recommend, reward." Chapter 10. Xiao Chen's name had not only spread among the nominal disciples, but even the 9 outer courtyards had heard of him. Before the outer sect grand ceremony began, many people had guessed that Xiao Chen would definitely choose the first courtyard. Sure enough, Xiao Chen had come. He had reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm at the age of 18, which completely met the basic requirement. Immediately, the female disciple personally led Xiao Chen into the first academy. Unlike the other sword academies, the first academy seemed a little lonely, but this was normal. With the requirements of the first academy, only a few people could become a disciple of the first academy. As they walked towards the main hall of the first academy, the girl briefly introduced the situation of the first academy to Xiao Chen. The girl's name was Chen Ling. She was 22 years old and her cultivation had reached the completion of the Yellow Realm. Xiao Chen learned from Chen Ling that there were 160 disciples in the entire First Academy. If Xiao Chen could pass the examination, he would become the 161st disciple. It had to be said that 100 disciples was indeed a small number. The other sword academies had at least 1,000 disciples. However, this also proved the strict requirements of the First Academy. If one was not a genius among geniuses, the First Academy would definitely not accept them. When Xiao Chen and Chen Ling arrived outside the main hall of the First Academy, an elder of the First Academy was already waiting for them. The middle-aged man was wearing a simple green gown. Chen Ling bowed to the elder and said, "Elder Mu, this is Xiao Chen. He is 18 years old and his cultivation has reached the beginning of the Yellow Realm. He has chosen the First Academy." Hearing Chen Ling's words, Elder Mu nodded slightly and then looked at Xiao Chen from head to toe. He had also heard of Xiao Chen's name. As the most outstanding of this batch of nominal disciples, as an elder of the First Academy, he naturally paid attention to him. After sizing up Xiao Chen for a while, Elder Mu finally said slowly, "I'll be the one in charge of this assessment. Xiao Chen, let me make it clear first. Although your talent is outstanding, that doesn't mean that you can pass Astral One's assessment. If you fail, you won't even be able to enter the other sword academies, and you'll miss this heaven-sent opportunity. Before we begin, I'll give you one more chance to reconsider. Are you sure you want to choose Astral One?" During the outer disciple ceremony, everyone only had one chance to choose a sword academy. If they failed, they would lose the opportunity to become an outer disciple of the Eastern Sword Pavilion. Hearing Elder Mu's words, Xiao Chen nodded without any hesitation. "Thank you for your reminder, Elder. This disciple has already made his decision. There is no need for further consideration." Xiao Chen had already made up his mind before coming here. Only the First Academy of the Outer Sect would belong to him. In the East Sword Pavilion, where geniuses were everywhere, the First Academy would undoubtedly be the place where dragons fought for supremacy. Since that was the case, Xiao Chen naturally wanted to fight for it. In this place where true geniuses gathered, he would shine with his own brilliance and write his own legend. Without any hesitation, his eyes were firm and clear. Hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Elder Mu nodded with satisfaction. As a disciple of the First Academy, talent was important, but temperament was equally important. If one did not even have this bit of confidence, then how could they be worthy of being a disciple of the First Academy? His first impression of Xiao Chen was very good. Next, the examination began. The entire First Academy's examination was divided into two steps. The first step was the foundation examination. The foundation was always the most important. If a person did not have a good foundation during the foundation establishment and channel opening stages, then even if they broke through to the Yellow Realm, it would only be for show. Elder Mu took out a fist-sized jade stone from his storage ring and said, "This stone is called the Foundation Testing Stone. When you inject your spiritual energy into it, the stone will light up in different colors according to the firmness of your foundation. From low to high, it will be white light, green light, blue light, purple light, and finally gold light. Only those who can reach the purple light will be considered qualified." As Elder Mu slowly explained the requirements of the examination to Xiao Chen, dozens of disciples of the First Academy had already gathered outside the main hall. The number of disciples in the First Academy was already small, and the dozens of people gathered here made up nearly half of the total number of disciples in the First Academy. They were all here to see how capable this new disciple of the First Academy was. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Xiao Chun slowly pressed his right hand onto the foundation testing stone and injected his spiritual power into it. Then, a bright light emitted from the stone. At first, it was white, but it quickly turned green, then blue, and finally purple. The appearance of the purple light meant that Xiao Chen's foundation had met the requirements of the First Academy. However, it was not over yet. After the purple light emitted, a faint golden light appeared. In just over 10 breaths of time, the purple light receded and was replaced by a dazzling golden light. A golden light. Does this mean that Astral One is going to have another person who has reached the limit of the foundation establishment stage? When they saw the golden light, the expressions of many of the First Academy's disciples changed. They were all geniuses among geniuses, but there were only 3 people in the entire First Academy who had reached the limit of the foundation establishment stage. Even including Xiao Chen, there were only 4 people who had reached the limit of the foundation establishment stage. Even the true geniuses of the First Academy were envious of someone who had reached the limit of the foundation establishment stage. Like the rest of the crowd, Elder Mu's eyes flashed with excitement when he saw the golden light. The 4th genius who had reached the limit of the foundation establishment stage was the ultimate genius that the First Academy needed. After the foundation testing stones test, Xiao Chun naturally passed the limit of the foundation establishment stage perfectly. Next, it was time to test the basic sword technique, which had to be at the manifestation stage. Just like the foundation of cultivation, the foundation of swordsmanship was also extremely important. Although the moves of the basic swordsmanship were simple, every set of swordsmanship could be said to have evolved from the basic swordsmanship. Only by truly mastering the basic swordsmanship to the limit could one become an outstanding swordsman. Upon hearing this requirement, Xiao Chen didn't say much and directly displayed the basic sword technique in front of everyone. Simple stabs, flicks, slashes, hooks, and other basic sword moves were all performed by Xiao Chen. These seemingly simple moves were different in Xiao Chen's hands. This was a feeling that could only be achieved after reaching the manifestation stage. The limit of the manifestation stage, not bad, not bad. Xiao Chen passed both tests perfectly. The limit of the foundation establishment stage and the limit of the manifestation stage. Whether it was the basics of cultivation or the basics of swordsmanship, Xiao Chen could be said to be perfect. Even Elder Mu, who was at the celestial realm, couldn't find any flaws. This person's name is Xiao Chen, right? The limit of the foundation establishment stage, the limit of the manifestation stage. He's not simple. Looks like Astral One is going to be lively again. He's just a new disciple. So what if he has some talent? For at least a year, even if he's a dragon, he still has to coil around it. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 11. Many of the First Academy's disciples had different thoughts about Xiao Chen's performance. Some admired him, while others were secretly jealous. Based on these 2 tests alone, Xiao Chen had already surpassed 99% of the First Academy's disciples. The peak of foundation establishment and the peak of transformation were not things that ordinary people could achieve. Even in Astral One, the number of people who could reach these 2 points could be counted on one hand. Of course, this was only referring to Xiao Chen's foundation. In terms of cultivation and strength, Xiao Chen was still inferior to the veteran First Academy's disciples. Perhaps it was because of Xiao Chen's heaven-defying performance that a minority of the First Academy's disciples were jealous of him. Xiao Chen passed both of the foundational tests with perfect result. The second round of tests was the test of combat prowess. As a disciple of Astral One, it was not enough to just have a high cultivation base. Not only did one have to have the best talent, but one's combat strength also had to be at the top. Therefore, the strength of one's combat strength was also very important. The rules of the combat strength test were very simple. Elder Mu would randomly pick an older disciple from Astral 1 and suppress that disciple's cultivation base to Xiao Chen's level. As long as Xiao Chen could withstand 100 moves from that disciple, he would pass. However, it was not easy to defeat an older disciple of the same cultivation base. Even though the older disciples of Astral 1 had suppressed their cultivation bases, their combat awareness was not affected. Therefore, it was not easy to withstand 100 moves from an older disciple of the same cultivation base. Elder Mu looked at the many disciples around him. Just as he was about to pick someone, a disciple suddenly volunteered. This disciple is willing to be Junior Xiao Chen's test subject. After hearing this disciple's words, Elder Mu pondered for a moment before nodding. All right, Li Yang. You will be the test subject this time. After agreeing to Li Yang's request, Li Yang bowed to Elder Mu and slowly walked towards Xiao Chen with a sneer on his face. Junior Xiao Chen, although you are talented, it won't be easy for you to withstand 100 moves from me. Don't let your guard down. Xiao Chen sensed a faint hostility from Li Yang. There shouldn't be any grudges between the two of them, but this Li Yang, he didn't know that Li Yang's enmity towards him was due to the innate talent that he had just displayed. Li Yang had already been in Astral 1 for 3 years, but he was still at the bottom of the rankings. After witnessing Xiao Chen's heaven-defying innate talent, he couldn't help but feel jealous and resentful. It had to be said that it would be difficult for someone like Li Yang to achieve great things in the future. He was so narrow-minded that he couldn't bear to see others doing well. How could he become a true cultivator if that was the case? Feeling Li Yang's hostility, Xiao Chen didn't say anything. He calmly cupped his hands and said to Li Yang, "Senior, please." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Li Yang took the initiative to suppress his own cultivation. His cultivation, which was originally at the advanced yellow realm, was suppressed to the beginning yellow realm. Then, Elder Mu softly shouted, "The combat strength test begins." Following Elder Mu's voice, Li Yang took the initiative to attack. He took a step forward and used the upper-level martial arts technique, Clear Wind Step. His whole body quickly rushed towards Xiao Chen. Facing Li Yang's attack, Xiao Chen didn't let down his guard. Indeed, none of the outer disciples of the first courtyard of the East Sword Pavilion were ordinary. Once Li Yang made his move, no one dared to underestimate him. Immediately, Xiao Chen drew his sword. Holding the long sword in his hand, Xiao Chen's breath became fierce. Then, facing Li Yang, Xiao Chen fiercely swung his sword at an extremely tricky angle. Facing Xiao Chen's sword, Li Yang didn't dare to take it head-on. Instead, he leaned to the side to avoid it. Xiao Chen forced Li Yang to retreat with a single strike, and that retreat also caused Li Yang to completely lose the initiative. In an instant, Xiao Chen's attacks came at him like a flood, not giving Li Yang any chance to catch his breath. Originally, Li Yang took the initiative to attack, but in just one move, he was completely suppressed by Xiao Chen. Naturally, Li Yang had underestimated his opponent. Otherwise, Xiao Chen wouldn't have been able to suppress him so easily. As they watched the intense battle between the two, many of the first courtyard's disciples secretly nodded their heads in admiration. Not bad. He didn't rely on his talent and used his full strength right from the start. This child's temperament is also extraordinary. Yes, on the other hand, Li Yang was a little careless. With his strength, even if they were in the same realm, he wouldn't have been suppressed by Xiao Chen in one move. It can only be said that he underestimated his opponent from the start. The two of them were completely opposite. Xiao Chen used his full strength against Li Yang and didn't underestimate him at all. On the other hand, Li Yang didn't put Xiao Chen in his eyes at all. It was no wonder that Li Yang was suppressed by Xiao Chen in an instant. Being suppressed by a new disciple, Li Yang's face became increasingly gloomy in the midst of the fierce battle. A hint of anger grew in his heart. Risking his own injuries, Li Yang forcibly broke through Xiao Chen's attack. Then, he drew his own sword and fiercely slashed it out. Li Yang was truly enraged. This attack contained all of Li Yang's strength, and at the same time, he also used a high-grade martial technique, Shadow Strike. Flashes of the sword filled the air. Xiao Chen was no stranger to the sword Shadow Kill, as he had also trained in the sword Shadow Kill and had reached a perfect state. Then again, Li Yang's sword Shadow Kill had also reached a perfect state. Facing the sword shadows that filled the sky, Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. His expression didn't change in the slightest because of Li Yang's attack. Then, under everyone's gaze, Xiao Chen slowly stabbed out with his sword. When they saw that Xiao Chen didn't dodge, all of the first courtyard's disciples were stunned. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to resist Li Yang's shadow strike head-on? I just said that he had a good temperament, but now he's showing his true colors? He actually wants to resist Li Yang's shadow strike head-on. Arrogant, he's too arrogant. Not only did he choose to fight head-on, he didn't even use a martial technique. Does he think that he can block Li Yang's shadow strike with a simple stab? Everyone thought that Xiao Chen's actions were too arrogant. It was fine that he didn't dodge, but he didn't even use a martial technique. What was going on? They all expressed their displeasure. However, just as the disciples were talking, a sword chi suddenly erupted from Xiao Chen's sword. When the sword chi burst out, Li Yang's expression changed drastically. He said in disbelief, "Sword chi." He didn't expect that Xiao Chen had already comprehended sword chi. As expected, Li Yang's shadow strike collapsed as soon as the sword chi appeared. Seeing this, Li Yang had no choice but to stop suppressing his cultivation. With his cultivation of the profound yellow realm, Li Yang successfully blocked Xiao Chen's sword chi. But even so, Li Yang still unconsciously stepped back 7 or 8 steps. Please add recommend reward. Chapter 12. A single sword strike had forced Li Yang to give up on suppressing his cultivation and even successfully pushed him back. When the surrounding astral, one disciples saw this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Li Yang had seen through Xiao Chen's sword chi, and the others had naturally seen it as well. As astral, one disciples and sword cultivators, they were no strangers to sword chi. It was no exaggeration to say that sword chi was something that every sword cultivator dreamed of. This was because sword chi was the threshold to sword intent. Only those who had comprehended sword chi would have the opportunity to touch sword intent. Sword chi was very important to a swordsman, but it was very difficult to comprehend it. Currently, there were only 3 people in Astral 1 who had managed to comprehend sword chi, and they were the top 3 geniuses of Astral 1 who were at the peak of foundation establishment, just like Xiao Chen. Now, in addition to those 3 geniuses, there was also Xiao Chen who had comprehended sword aura. The scene made the surrounding disciples unable to stay calm. They could accept Xiao Chen's talent, and they could also accept Xiao Chen's limit of foundation establishment and the limit of manifestation. However, they could not accept that Xiao Chen had comprehended sword chi at the age of 18. This was simply too shocking. This kind of talent could no longer be described as a genius. Is he really only 18 years old this year? Is there going to be a 4th monster in Astral 1? So it's a tripartite confrontation. In the future, there will probably be 4 contenders for hegemony. Many disciples stared blankly at Xiao Chen as they murmured in shock. While everyone was whispering, Li Yang, who had been pushed back, turned pale. He wanted to attack again, but he was stopped by Elder Mu. Enough. You are no longer Xiao Chen's match in the same realm. Elder Mu stopped Li Yang and strode over to Xiao Chen. His face, which had been expressionless since the beginning, finally revealed a smile as he said, "Good," 3 times in a row. Good, good, good. Comprehending sword chi at the age of 18 is a rare talent. From now on, you are a disciple of Astral 1. There was nothing much to say. Faced with Xiao Chen's talent, Elder Mu naturally accepted him into Astral 1 without any hesitation. Aside from Astral 1, Which other sword academy would dare accept such a genius? If he accepted it, he would be destroying a heavenly treasure. He completely ignored Li Yang. Seeing the smile on Elder Mu's face, Li Yang clenched his fists. Originally, he wanted to teach Xiao Chen a lesson, but who would have thought that he would end up losing the rice used to lure him? In the end, he overreached himself and made Xiao Chen famous. Li Yang felt that he had lost face. However, just as Li Yang was fuming in anger, an old man in a coarse white robe flew through the air and landed outside the first courtyard's main hall in just 2 steps. Only a powerhouse who had surpassed the celestial realm could fly through the air. When they saw the old man appear, all of the First Academy's disciples revealed excited expressions. It was as if they were burning incense to the heavens just to be able to see the old man. The old man's name was Tsang Xian, and he was the head dean of the East Sword Pavilion's outer court. At the same time, he was also the dean of Astral One. In the outer court, no, even in the entire East Sword Pavilion, he was ranked in the top 3. He was the senior brother of the current East Sword Pavilion master. It was no wonder that the first courtyard's disciples were so excited when they saw Tsang Xian. Thinking about it, with Tsang Xian's status, how could he casually appear in public? Even some of the disciples who had been in the outer court for several years were seeing Tsang Xian in person for the first time. "Greetings, Dean." Not only were the disciples surprised, but even Elder Mu was also stunned. After regaining his senses, he hurriedly bowed respectfully to Tsang Xian. Tsang Xian nodded indifferently at Elder Mu and did not say anything else. His gaze locked onto Xiao Chen's body. The light emitted from his turbid eyes was as if he wanted to see through Xiao Chen. It was as if he had fallen into a black hole. This was the first time that Xiao Chen had faced an expert of this level, and he could not even muster the slightest bit of resistance. After a long while, Tsang Xian finally opened his mouth. "You're Xiao Chen?" "Yes." Xiao Chen nodded in response. "Release your sword aura for me to see," Tsang Xian said. Although Xiao Chen did not understand what Tsang Xian wanted to do, he did not refuse. In front of Tsang Xian, he displayed his sword aura. In an instant, invisible sword aura wreaked havoc around Xiao Chen, leaving sword marks on the limestone floor. Everyone was even more surprised when they saw the sword aura. Tsang Xian smiled and nodded. "Not bad, not bad. Although you've only just reached the entry level, it is indeed sword aura. It's already rare to comprehend sword aura at the age of 18. Sword aura was the same as cultivation. It was divided into the entry level, initial stage, advanced stage, initial stage, and final stage. Only after one's sword aura reached the final stage would one have the chance to glimpse the existence of sword intent. Xiao Chen's sword aura was only at the entry level, and there was still a long way to go before he reached the final stage. Even so, being able to comprehend sword aura at the age of 18 was already extremely difficult. It was likely that not even 1 out of 1,000,000 sword cultivators would be able to do so. Yet, Xiao Chen had done it, being praised by Tsang Xian. Upon hearing these words, envy, jealousy, and hatred filled the faces of the numerous disciples. Tsang Xian was the chief dean of the outer courtyard, and one of the top 3 experts in the entire East Sword Pavilion. They had never heard of Tsang Xian personally praising anyone before, but today, Xiao Chen had received Tsang Xian's personal praise. The fact that Xiao Chen was able to enter Tsang Xian's sight was already proof of his extraordinariness. At the same time, Xiao Chen would likely be given a certain amount of cultivation resources in the future. There was no helping it. This was how geniuses were. As long as the sect valued you, cultivation resources would naturally be given to you. Capable people get more. This was the law of survival in the East Sword Pavilion. There was no doubt that Xiao Chen's status in the outer courtyard would be extremely high in the future. At the same time, with the resources from the upper echelons of the sect and Xiao Chen's talent, His rate of improvement would definitely far surpass the other outer courtyard disciples. They felt somewhat unbalanced, and even a little jealous. However, what was even more difficult to accept was yet to come. Song Xian paused for a moment, before he continued to speak. The moment these words came out, it was as if everyone had been struck by lightning, as they stood dazedly on the spot. Xiao Qin, this old man intends to accept you as a disciple. What do you think? Accept a disciple? Song Xian wanted to accept Xiao Qin as a disciple? What kind of joke was this? Upon hearing these words, the surrounding crowd was completely petrified. Each and every one of them thought that they had misheard. There were even some who slapped themselves in an attempt to wake themselves up. Xiao Qin had only just entered the outer courtyard, yet he had already alarmed Song Xian. It would have been fine if that was all, but Song Xian even had the intention to accept him as a disciple. What the hell was going on? Comparing oneself to others is really infuriating. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 13. Who was Song Xian? He was a top expert in the Eastern Sun region. How many people in the entire Eastern Sun region could compete with him? Such a great figure actually wanted to accept Xiao Qin as his disciple? Song Xian had 2 disciples so far. One was a core disciple of the East Sword Pavilion, while the other was an inner disciple. Both of them were ranked in the top 3 among the core disciples and inner disciples, and could be said to be the leading figures of the East Sword Pavilion. Compared to them, Xiao Qin was just a kid who had just entered the outer courtyard. How could he become Song Xian's 3rd disciple? They couldn't believe their ears, but the truth was right in front of them. Everyone looked at Xiao Qin with a complicated expression. As the saying goes, one can reach the heavens in a single step. Under everyone's gazes, Xiao Qin was taken aback for a moment. He didn't expect Song Xian to want to accept him as his disciple. He didn't immediately agree, but silently looked at Song Xian while pondering in his heart. In fact, this wasn't a difficult choice. If Xiao Qin became Song Xian's disciple, his cultivation path would be much smoother in the future. Moreover, Song Xian had a good reputation in the East Sword Pavilion. He never accepted disciples easily and was very good to his disciples. Without much hesitation, Xiao Qin immediately bowed to Song Xian and said, "Disciple greets master." After receiving Xiao Qin's answer, Song Xian laughed heartily. At the same time, he waved his hand slightly and a gentle force lifted Xiao Qin up. "Good. You will stay in the first courtyard for the next few days. After the apprenticeship ceremony, you will be my 3rd disciple and also my last disciple." Ha! Song Xian flicked his finger and a jade bottle slowly landed in Xiao Qin's hand. At the same time, Song Xian flew into the air and left the main hall of the first courtyard. Xiao Qin took the jade bottle and opened it. There was only a longan-sized pill inside. It was spotlessly white and flawless. At the same time, a refreshing smell spread out from the jade bottle. What kind of pill is this? It's definitely not an ordinary pill with such powerful effects. Aren't you talking nonsense? How can a pill bestowed by the dean be ordinary? Moreover, he gave it to his own disciple. Just the pill's fragrance alone was enough to determine that it was extraordinary. Xiao Qin kept the jade bottle in his storage ring. He didn't expect that he would become Song Xian's disciple so soon after joining the outer sect. Everything seemed like a dream, but it was a good thing. But elder Song Xian's residence, Song Xian's disciple, Song Xian, and Song Xian's Song Xian. Song Xian's Song Xian was Song Xian and Song Xian's Song Xian. Song Xian's Song Xian and the other Song 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 Song. Song Song. Xiao Qin, report to me if you lack anything. I will order someone to purchase it. Tomorrow, I will select 2 maids and send them over. You can leave the daily necessities to them. Elder Mu said politely after arranging Long Chen's accommodation. After Xiao Qin became Song Xian's disciple, Elder Mu's attitude towards Xiao Qin had become incomparably polite. Now that he was Tsang Xian's disciple, Xiao Chen's status in the future would definitely not be something an outer court elder like him could compare with. Hence, Elder Mu was very aware of his position. In the face of Elder Mu's politeness, Xiao Chen also treated him with respect. After that, Elder Mu allowed Xiao Chen to nominate this small courtyard. In the future, this would be Xiao Chen's residence in the Eastern Sword Pavilion's outer sect. Xiao Chen looked at the empty horizontal signboard above the courtyard door and pondered for a moment. Then, he brandished his sword and 3 large, flamboyant words appeared on the horizontal signboard: Dustless Residence. It was named Dustless Residence. After doing all this, Xiao Chen chatted with Elder Mu for a while before he finally had some peace and quiet. Life really makes fools of people. Who would have thought that I would actually become senior Tsang Xian's last disciple? Xiao Chen said unhurriedly as he sat in the courtyard. Even Xiao Chen found it hard to remain calm about such a meteoric rise. After all, no matter what, Xiao Chen was still a young man who had just turned 18 years old. After a night of silence, Elder Mu indeed sent 2 maids over the next day. They were around 20 years old and looked pure and lovely. Their appearances were not the least bit inferior to Qin Shuru and Chen Mushue's. Most importantly, they were a pair of twins. He did not stand on ceremony and directly thanked Elder Mu and accepted the 2 maids. Actually, you don't have to do anything. You just need to clean up the dustless residence. I can wash my own clothes. I can see that both of you are at the perfect channel opening stage. If you have nothing to do in the future, you can practice on your own. Of course, if I have extra practice resources, I will also share some with you. You don't have to be so restrained. After sending Elder Mu away, Xiao Chen said slowly when he saw that the 2 girls were somewhat restrained. Xiao Chen's performance was very easygoing. Sensing this, the 2 girls gradually relaxed. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chen learned that the elder sister was called Qin Yao and the younger sister was called Qin Luo. The 2 girls were indeed twin sisters. Like Xiao Chen, they also came from Lingfeng Empire. Moreover, their backgrounds were not bad, and they were direct descendants of the Qin clan, one of the 3 great clans of Lingfeng Empire. They were previously nominal disciples of the Dongjian Pavilion and did not participate in the outer sect ceremony because their cultivation had yet to break through to the yellow stage. When they heard that there was an opportunity to serve Xiao Chen, the 2 sisters took the initiative to ask Elder Mu to come and even paid a price for it. As daughters of wealthy clans, the 2 girls actually took the initiative to ask to become his maids. Xiao Chen was filled with helplessness when he learned of this. However, on second thought, this was very normal. He was already considered a disciple of Tsang Xian, and his status was far from what a direct descendant of the Qin clan could compare to. Being able to follow by Xiao Chen's side would only bring benefits to the 2 girls and no harm. Xiao Chen's future achievements would be immeasurable. When Xiao Chen matured in the future, as Xiao Chen's maids, the 2 girls' achievements would likely not be any lower than a disciple of the Dongjian Pavilion. To put it bluntly, the 2 girls had their eyes on Xiao Chen's future. He did not have any requirements for the 2 girls, but the 2 girls insisted on taking good care of Xiao Chen. Things like washing clothes and cooking naturally could not be done by Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen only needed to focus on his cultivation, and the other things would be taken care of by them. He did not insist and let the 2 girls be happy. With them, he could indeed save a lot of trouble. Therefore, he also planned to refine the elixir given by Tsang Xian. It was called the Primary Spirit Elixir and was a 2nd-grade elixir. It could be said to be a peerless elixir for a warrior of the Yellow Realm. If it was in the outside world, this elixir was probably worth 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. The outer disciples of the Dongjian Pavilion only received 10 low-grade spirit stones every month, which was enough to show the high value of this primary spirit elixir. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 14. Tsang Xian gave Xiao Chen a primary elixir when they met for the first time. It could be seen how much Tsang Xian valued Xiao Chen. He told Qingyao and Qingluo that he would be in closed-door training for a few days. If there was anything, they could talk about it after he finished his training. The two girls naturally nodded in response to Xiao Chen's order. Sitting cross-legged on the futon in the room, Xiao Chen first calmed his mind and adjusted his state to the peak. Then he swallowed the primary elixir in one gulp. As the elixir entered his stomach, the gentle and pure medicinal power instantly melted. Pure spiritual power continuously flowed into Xiao Chen's limbs and veins. With the help of the primary elixir, his cultivation, which had reached the initial level of the Yellow Realm, had now touched the threshold of the initial level of the Yellow Realm. With the help of the primary elixir, Xiao Chen wanted to break through to the initial level of the Yellow Realm. He had already stayed at the initial level of the Yellow Realm for several months. His cultivation had completely stabilized. It was not difficult for him to break through to the initial level of the Yellow Realm. It was just a matter of time. Xiao Chen was in closed-door training. At the same time, the news that Song Xian wanted to accept him as his last disciple quickly spread in the outer gate. Moreover, only one day later, the higher-ups of the East Sword Pavilion announced that Xiao Chen's apprenticeship ceremony would be held in 10 days. Since the higher-ups of the East Sword Pavilion had already announced it, it was undoubtedly true. For a time, Xiao Chen's name resounded throughout the East Sword Pavilion. Even the inner disciples and core disciples had heard of Xiao Chen's name. Becoming Song Xian's last disciple meant that Xiao Chen would beat Song Xian's last disciple. From now on, Song Xian would not accept anyone else. The entire East Sword Pavilion was shocked. In the face of this, some people were happy for Xiao Chen, such as Mo Jie and Qin Shi. However, at the same time, some people were jealous and secretly hated Xiao Chen. In the entire East Sword Pavilion, there were many people who wanted to beat Song Xian's disciple. However, Song Xian had always looked down on them. Now, a new outer disciple had become Song Xian's disciple. How could they not be jealous? There were many core disciples, inner disciples and outer disciples who were jealous of Xiao Chen. There were even some who openly declared that Xiao Chen was not worthy of being a disciple of Zhongshuan sect. For a time, the entire Dongjian Pavilion was engulfed in debate. In the first courtyard of the outer sect, in an elegant courtyard not far from Xiao Chen's dustless residence, a young man in a purple robe sat in the courtyard, while Li Yang stood respectfully at the side and said with a humble face, "Senior brother, this Xiao Chen is really lucky to be chosen by the dean. He has comprehended sword aura, but senior brother has also comprehended sword aura. Even senior brother didn't receive the dean's favor. What does this kid have? I feel sorry for senior brother." "Shut up." Li Yang spoke leisurely, but before he could finish, he was angrily interrupted by the young man. Li Yang did not dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction and immediately shut his mouth. The young man's name was Wang Hu, and he was one of the top 3 evildoers in the first courtyard. At the same time, he was also one of the top 3 evildoers in the entire outer yard. He was 23 years old this year, and his cultivation had already reached the completion of the Yellow Realm. He was only one step away from the mysterious Ian Realm. At the same time, he was also at the peak of the foundation establishment stage like Xiao Chen and had also comprehended sword aura. Wang Hu was naturally unhappy with Xiao Chen, who had been the talk of the town recently. He felt that he was not inferior to Xiao Chen in any way, but why did Song Xian choose Xiao Chen? He was one of the top 3 evildoers in the outer yard, but Song Xian had never shown any appreciation for his talent. However, Xiao Chen was accepted by Song Xian as a disciple after only meeting him once. A cold light flashed in Wang Hu's eyes, and he shouted in a cold voice, "Even I, Wang Hu, can't become the dean's disciple. What qualifications do you have? Xiao Chen, I want to see what kind of virtue you have. If you are just a paper tiger, I will make you lose all your face in the apprenticeship ceremony." The jealousy in Wang Hu's heart made him view Xiao Chen as an enemy. The same scene appeared in the other two evildoers of the outer yard. The three of them were extremely unhappy with Shao Chen and thought that he did not deserve to beat Song Xian's last disciple. The outside world was in an uproar because of his apprenticeship, but Shao Chen did not know about it. After 3 days of closed-door training, Shao Chen finally broke through to the initial Yellow Realm on the 4th day. After the breakthrough, Shao Chen was in a good mood. He called Qin Yao and Qin Luo to ask if anything had happened in the past few days. In response to Shao Chen's inquiry, the two girls naturally told Shao Chen everything that had happened in the past few days. The most important thing was that the apprenticeship ceremony was set to be held in 6 days. Young master, we heard a lot of rumors saying that many people are dissatisfied with you and are preparing to make things difficult for you during the apprenticeship ceremony. Qin Yao said worriedly after recounting what happened during the apprenticeship ceremony to Shao Chen. He had already guessed that it would be like this. He was a new disciple, but he had become the master's last disciple in one step. It would be strange if those people were not jealous. It doesn't matter. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. I'm not afraid of anyone in the same realm. Those inner disciples and core disciples can't deal with me personally. If that's the case, the master won't just sit and watch. Shao Chen said indifferently without worrying about these things. As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Jie and the others arrived outside the dustless house. They had been here many times in the past few days, but Shao Chen was always in closed-door training. Today, seeing that Shao Chen had finally come out, Mo Jie went up to congratulate him with a smile. "Junior brother, you really surprised us. You're already the master's last disciple. As your senior brother, I'm afraid I'll have to rely on you in the future." There was no change in their attitude because of Shao Chen's change in identity. In this regard, Shao Chen was naturally the happiest. If Mo Jie and the others were respectful, he would be unaccustomed to it. He stood up and smiled at everyone, then invited them to take a seat. Shao Chen said with a smile, "Senior brother, you're really making fun of me. Now, I don't know how many people are secretly unhappy with me. Sigh, I'm afraid it won't be easy to successfully become the master's disciple." "That's true, but I believe that you'll have no problems. As long as you don't lose to those in the same realm, the master will handle everything else. Those inner disciples and core disciples won't lower themselves to deal with you personally. So, junior brother, you must work hard and become the master's disciple. In the future, it'll be easier for us to ride on your coattails." Heh. Upon hearing Shao Chen's words, Qin Shuru said with a chuckle, "Yes, junior sister, you're right. In fact, you just need to be careful of the 3 evildoers in the outer court. They are the most likely to make things difficult for you and also the most threatening ones. As long as you get rid of the 3 of them, there won't be any problems." In the past few days, everyone had been paying attention to Shao Chen's matters. At this moment, the concern in their words was overflowing. After a series of discussions, Shao Chen acted as the host and everyone drank heartily in the dustless house to celebrate their entry into the outer court and successfully becoming the outer court disciples of the East Sword Pavilion. Please collect recommend reward. Chapter 15. That night, Shao Chen played with Mo Jie and the others until late into the night. Over the next few days, he continued to cultivate and stabilize his newly advanced cultivation. Shao Chen did not feel the slightest bit arrogant because of the change in his status. He clearly understood that only by becoming stronger would he be able to truly obtain the respect of others. Always relying on others was not a long-term solution. 6 days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, when the sky had just begun to brighten, numerous disciples had already gathered at the East Sword Pavilion's outer courtyard main plaza. They were all here to witness Shao Chen's apprenticeship ceremony. As the outer sect chief dean and one of the top 3 experts in the entire East Sword Pavilion, Song Xian's apprenticeship was definitely a major event for the East Sword Pavilion. There were still several hours before the ceremony began, but everyone had already gathered here. They chatted with each other while waiting for the ceremony to begin. "Have you guys heard? This time, even the pavilion master and the inner sect chief dean will personally come to witness Xiao Chen's apprenticeship ceremony. I've long heard that the Tsongshuan chief dean, the pavilion master and the inner sect chief dean are fellow disciples. Since he is going to accept a disciple, and a final disciple at that, the pavilion master and the others will naturally come. Moreover, it's not just them. It's said that all the elders of the East Sword Pavilion will be present. Yeah, I don't know what kind of dog's hit luck Xiao Chen has to have caught the eye of the chief dean. His apprenticeship ceremony has completely shaken the entire East Sword Pavilion. All the important figures of our East Sword Pavilion will come to be witnesses. Humph, there's a saying that the higher you stand, the more painful it will be to fall. Although the chief dean has said that he will accept Xiao Chen as his final disciple, it will depend on whether Xiao Chen has the ability to do so. Just wait and see. When the ceremony begins, if Xiao Chen can't show his true ability, he will naturally be completely humiliated. Everyone began to discuss one after another. At the same time, as the person involved, Xiao Chen, appeared very calm, and did not show much emotion. When it was almost time for the ceremony, Xiao Chen, who was dressed in white clothes, finally walked towards the outer court's main plaza unhurriedly. Qin Yao and Qin Luo followed closely behind him. Originally, the two girls didn't dare to come. After all, their current identities were only Xiao Chen's maids. However, seeing that the two girls were looking forward to this apprenticeship ceremony, Xiao Chen brought the two girls along. It wasn't a big deal to have a look. Perhaps it was because of the grand ceremony, many outer sect disciples had gathered at the main square. Along the way, Xiao Chen and the other two did not meet a single disciple. They directly arrived at the outer sect main square. Xiao Chen's arrival undoubtedly attracted everyone's attention. Today, Xiao Chen was the main character, and everyone wanted to see exactly what was so special about this new disciple that had just entered the outer court to actually be chosen by the head dean. Everyone's gaze turned towards Xiao Chen, and for a moment, many people said with faces full of jealousy, "He's just SOSO. I really don't understand what the head dean sees in him." Xiao Chen did not care about these people's discussions. He led Qin Yao and Qin Luo through the crowd. At the front of the crowd, he smiled at the two girls and said, "You two can watch from here." He chose the best seats for the two girls. When they heard Xiao Chen's words, the two girls nodded excitedly. Then, Xiao Chen stepped onto the high platform at the front of the plaza alone. Xiao Chen arrived. At the same time, a group of elders from the East Sword Pavilion also appeared. There were a total of more than 20 people. To become an elder of the East Sword Pavilion, one's cultivation was at least at the heaven-human stage. If one wanted to become a core elder, one's cultivation had to surpass the heaven-human stage. As soon as these 20 people appeared, another 7 figures came from the horizon and quickly landed in front of Xiao Chen. These 7 people were the core elders of the East Sword Pavilion. Their status was second only to Tsang Xian and the other two. Ordinary elders could not be compared to them, and their cultivation had all surpassed the heaven-human stage. Our East Sword Pavilion has a total of 10 core elders, and 7 of them have come today. Xiao Chen really has a lot of face. The numerous disciples below were slightly taken aback when they saw the 7 core elders appear, and then began to make sarcastic remarks. How could they not be jealous of someone who could attract the attention of so many important figures in the East Sword Pavilion? The 7 core elders curiously sized up Xiao Chen. They were also curious as to why Tsang Xian would choose Xiao Chen. Moreover, Tsang Xian was so decisive that he decided to accept Xiao Chen as his disciple after only one meeting. Xiao Chen felt a lot of pressure being sized up by the 7 core elders. Although the 7 of them did not deliberately release any auras, their deep gazes still made Xiao Chen's scalp turn numb. Fortunately, this did not last for long. The 7 withdrew their gazes and returned to their respective seat. The elders had all arrived, and only Tsang Xian and the other 2 were left. They did not have to wait for long. In less than 10 minutes, 3 figures had suddenly appeared in the 3 empty chairs at the center. Tsang Xian was one of them. No one had sensed when the Tsang Xian trio had arrived. As the trio appeared, the group of elders bowed one after another, while the one in the middle waved his hand in greeting. Tsang Xian was to the left of the trio, while the one in the middle was obviously the pavilion master of the East Sword Pavilion, Tsang Yun. As for the one on the right, he was likely the chief dean of the Inner Academy. Tsang Long, Tsang Xian, Tsang Yun, and Tsang Long were the 3 strongest people of the East Sword Pavilion. It was because of their existence that the East Sword Pavilion had been able to prosper for thousands of years. His gaze unconsciously sized up Tsang Yun and Tsang Long. Tsang Yun was middle-aged, while Tsang Long was extremely burly. Especially his fiery red hair, which gave people a feeling that they would never forget him. What he did not know was that among the 3 of them, Tsang Xian was the eldest senior brother, and Tsang Long was the second senior brother. As for the pavilion master, Tsang Yun, he was the youngest junior brother. Just as Xiao Chen was sizing up Tsang Yun and Tsang Long slowly opened his mouth and said, "I shouldn't have said anything when senior brother wants to accept a disciple, but the cultivation of the initial yellow realm is indeed a little low." Tsang Long was the first to speak. From his words, it seemed that he was not very satisfied with himself. However, before he could reply, Tsang Xian said with a smile, "Junior brother, my disciple only had the cultivation of the initial yellow realm 10 days ago, and he has just turned 18 years old this year." With a smile on his face, Tsang Long was slightly stunned when he heard Tsang Xian's words. To break through a small realm in 10 days, this speed was indeed a little fast. Moreover, the most important thing was that Xiao Chen was only 18 years old and had already reached the initial yellow realm. This kind of talent was probably enough to be compared with the top little monsters in the East Sword Pavilion. Of course, Xiao Chen was still too young, so he could only compare his talent. In terms of strength, there was still a huge gap between him and those little monsters. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 16. After acknowledging Xiao Chen's extraordinary talent, Tsang Long did not say anything else. He naturally could not target Xiao Chen. After taking a deep look at Xiao Chen, Tsang Long did not say anything else. Tsang Yun smiled and said, "Xiao Chen, although first senior brother has already announced that you will be his last disciple, there are still many tests waiting for you if you want to succeed." While speaking, Tsang Yun calmly swept a glance over the numerous disciples below. For Xiao Chen's apprenticeship ceremony, not only were there outer sect disciples, but there were also many inner sect disciples gathered here. Moreover, the gazes that were looking at Xiao Chen were also extremely unfriendly. Xiao Chen understood the meaning of Tsang Yun's words. Ever since the news of him becoming Tsang Xian's disciple had spread, many disciples felt that he was not qualified to become Tsang Xian's disciple. The best way to shut their mouths was naturally to display talent and strength that could convince them wholeheartedly, and prove that Tsang Xian was not wrong. Without saying anything else, Xiao Chen bowed to Tsang Xian and the other 2 before taking the initiative to walk down the high platform. Arriving in front of the crowd, Xiao Chen swept a glance over the nearly 10,000 Sword Pavilion disciples before speaking in an indifferent voice. "I know that all of you are unconvinced, and I also know that all of you are jealous of me. How about this? I will give all of you a chance today. If you are unconvinced, step forward. As long as your cultivation is suppressed to the same level as mine, whether it is an outer sect disciple, inner sect disciple, or core disciple, you can challenge me. As long as I lose, today's apprenticeship ceremony will be annulled. What do you think?" Xiao Chen's words naturally caused an uproar. For a time, many angry voices rang out one after another. "Xiao Chen, you really think you are someone important? You have just entered the outer sect and you dare to speak so arrogantly. That's right, you don't even refuse anyone. You are really a frog at the bottom of a well. You even dare to provoke a core disciple. Do you know that even if they suppress their cultivation to the same level as yours, a core disciple can still defeat you? Xiao Chen's words caused many disciples to be dissatisfied. Of course, this dissatisfaction stemmed more from jealousy. They could not understand why a newly promoted outer sect disciple's every word and action was enough to attract the attention of the entire East Sword Pavilion. In the face of all kinds of provocation and slander, Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. A light flashed from the storage ring in his hand, and a 3-feet-long sword instantly appeared in his hand. He pointed the tip of the sword as he spoke indifferently. If all of you only know how to talk, then save your energy. If you want to stop me from becoming a disciple, then show me your strength. If anyone of the same level can defeat me, I will immediately give up on becoming a disciple. As Xiao Chen spoke, sword qi continued to gather around his body. Swish, 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 swish. Feeling the sword qi on Xiao Chen's body, the surrounding crowd quickly quieted down. Many people were shocked by the fact that Xiao Chen was able to comprehend sword aura at the age of 18. Although they were jealous and even hostile toward Xiao Chen, they had to admit that Xiao Chen's talent was indeed incredible. Even the top 3 geniuses of the outer sanctum were only able to comprehend sword aura after the age of 20. However, Xiao Chen was able to do so at the age of 18. Song Yun's gaze slowly swept across the crowd. Seeing that Xiao Chen had actually taken the initiative to make trouble, Song Yun, who was on the high platform, smiled slightly and said, "Senior brother, this child is not bad. His talent and temperament are both excellent." Of course. How could this old man's judgment be wrong? Song Xian replied without any trace of politeness after hearing Song Yun's words. Yes, your judgment is not bad. However, look at the 2 disciples before you. One is a famous female T-Rex, while the other is an extremely lazy brat. If they can contribute 30% of their strength, they will definitely not contribute 40%. Song Xian's face was full of smiles, but soon after, Song Long opened his mouth to mock. After hearing Song Long's words, the smile on Song Xian's face immediately disappeared. Even Song Yun helplessly shook his head. Indeed, Song Xian's judgment was not bad. The 2 disciples he had accepted so far had already become the focus of attention in the Sword Pavilion. They were very talented, but their personalities, no one knew how to evaluate Song Xian's 2 disciples. In any case, even Song Yun, who was the pavilion master of the East Sword Pavilion, felt an incomparable headache when facing them. Obviously, they did not want to talk about these things. The 3 of them once again looked at Xiao Chen. At the same time, the first challenger appeared. It was one of the 3 monsters of the outer gate, Zhao Kuo. Among the many disciples, not many were blinded by the fire of jealousy in their hearts. Therefore, those with ordinary strength and talent did not have the guts to challenge Xiao Chen. This was because Xiao Chen had made it very clear that if they wanted to challenge him, they could suppress their cultivation to the initial stage of the Yellow Realm. Of course, ordinary disciples would not be able to defeat Xiao Chen if they were of the same level of cultivation. As such, most of them would not come out to embarrass themselves. In the entire outer sect, it was estimated that only the 3 geniuses dared to fight Xiao Chen at the same level. Zhao Kuo slowly walked out of the crowd and said with a stern face, "Xiao Chen, sometimes the higher you stand, the harder you fall. You have just entered the outer gate, so you should not be so high profile. I don't want to be like this. Worshipping a teacher will cause public anger. If I don't do this, how can you let me be your teacher? How about I apologize and you won't stop me?" Hearing Zhao Kuo's words, Xiao Chen replied helplessly. In fact, he did not want to be so high profile, but there was no other way. So many people wanted to make a fool of him. Instead of passively being beaten, it was better to take the initiative. At least he could take the initiative. Just like now, Xiao Chun had made the rule that he would only accept challenges from those in the same realm. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, a cold light flashed in Zhao Kuo's eyes. The storage ring in her hand flashed, and her sword appeared in her hand. Holding the long sword, Zhao Kuo also emitted her own sword qi and suppressed her cultivation to the initial stage of the Yellow Realm. You are not the only one in the outer sect who has comprehended sword qi. When I said high profile, I did not mean your current attitude. Instead, I meant that from the very beginning, you should have understood that you are not worthy to be the headmaster's disciple. At least, you are not worthy now. After finishing her words, without waiting for Xiao Chen's reply, Zhao Kuo directly moved her feet and rushed toward Xiao Chen. Zhao Kuo also comprehended sword qi, so her attack was extremely fierce and violent. As one of the top 3 evildoers of the outer gate, Zhao Kuo's reputation was not exaggerated, but real. Facing Zhao Kuo, Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless. At the same time, he did not want to waste time with Zhao Kuo. Seeing Zhao Kuo's sword, Xiao Chen did not dodge. Instead, he also stabbed Zhao Kuo's long sword. The tips of the two swords fiercely collided with each other. Surrounded by sword qi, there was a constant sound of cutting. Senior brother Zhao Kuo, your sword qi is not completely stable. You have not even reached the beginner realm. You are not my opponent in terms of sword qi. Xiao Chen said to Zhao Kuo indifferently. Please collect recommend reward. Chapter 17. Zhao Kuo was 24 years old, and his cultivation had already reached the completion of the Yellow Realm. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Zhao Kuo was furious, but before he could refute, Xiao Chen had already started his attack. As mentioned before, although Zhao Kuo had comprehended the sword aura, he had not really stabilized it. He had not even reached the beginner realm, so his sword aura was very vague. Therefore, he was not Xiao Chen's opponent in the competition of sword aura. He directly shattered Zhao Kuo's sword aura with brute force. Seeing his sword aura shattered, Zhao Kuo's face changed. However, in the next second, a sword was placed across Zhao Kuo's neck. Defeated, without any suspense, and defeated so thoroughly. Of course, this was also Zhao Kuo's own fault. If he had listened to Xiao Chen's advice and did not compete with Xiao Chen's sword aura, then Xiao Chen would not have defeated him so easily. Just an inch more and Zhao Kuo's life would be over. He looked at Zhao Kuo calmly, waiting for his answer. After a long while, Zhao Kuo finally opened his mouth. I've lost, he admitted his defeat. Hearing this, Xiao Chen put away his long sword, and then said to Zhao Kuo, Senior, thank you for showing mercy. If you didn't compete with me in the sword aura, I'm afraid the outcome would be uncertain. Even though Xiao Chen had won, he did not use this opportunity to humiliate Zhao Kuo. On the contrary, he had saved Zhao Kuo some face. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Zhao Kuo's expression visibly improved. He cupped his hands and returned the gesture. Junior, you don't have to be modest. When I was your age, I was far inferior to you. But you have to be careful of one person, Wang Hu. He is not as easy to deal with as I am. Perhaps because he was defeated by Xiao Chen, Zhao Kuo's jealousy in his heart was not as strong as before. On the contrary, he found Xiao Chen very pleasing to the eye. Although he was young, he was very experienced in dealing with people. Not only did he win, but he also left Zhao Kuo some face. No longer targeting Xiao Chen, Zhao Kuo turned around and returned to the crowd. Following Zhao Kuo's defeat, none of the outer disciples dared to step forward. The scene fell into a strange silence. Ordinary outer sect disciples did not dare to enter the arena, and inner sect disciples were not allowed to enter the arena. In the end, everyone's eyes fell on Wang Hu and the other outer sect monster, Qing Hai. If there was anyone who could fight with Xiao Chen in the same realm, it was probably only Wang Hu and Qing Hai. Of course, this was only limited to the outer sect. There were many inner sect disciples. However, using the identity of an inner sect disciple to bully an outer sect disciple was a bit unsightly. Standing beside Qinghai, Wang Hu said calmly, "Aren't you going to challenge him? If he succeeds in becoming a disciple, will you be willing to accept it?" Hearing Wang Hu's words, Qinghai smiled slightly and said, "Haha, you don't have to use these methods in front of me. Zhao Kuo and I are on the same level. Since Xiao Chen can defeat Zhao Kuo in the same realm, he can naturally defeat me. You are the strongest among the three of us. I think you should go up directly." He had no intention of fighting at all. Hearing Qinghai's words, Wang Hu coldly glanced at Qinghai. Regarding this, Qinghai did not mind. In the end, Wang Hu had no choice but to enter the arena himself. Among the outer sect's three great evildoers, Wang Hu's strength was the strongest. He was also recognized as the #1 person in the outer sect. Seeing Wang Hu enter the arena, many outer sect disciples cheered. It was obvious that his popularity in the outer sect was not low. Standing in front of Xiao Chen, Wang Hu's expression was calm. He took out his sword and said calmly, "My sword aura is not like Zhao Kuo's. If you want to defeat me with sword aura, I'm afraid it won't be that easy." As he spoke, Wang Hu's body emitted rays of sword aura. He was indeed stronger than Zhao Kuo and had reached the entry level, just like Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not have any advantage in terms of sword aura, but he did not change his expression too much. He saluted Wang Hu with his hands folded. Then, Xiao Chen made the first move. The Jian Yi in his hand flicked and the sword aura whistled. Seeing this, Wang Hu also released a ray of sword aura. The two rays of sword aura collided. In the end, no one could defeat the other, and they dissipated at the same time. After the first collision, the two were evenly matched. Then, Wang Hu shouted in a low voice, "5 Mountain Swordsmanship." The 5 Mountain Swordsmanship was an upper-grade martial arts technique. When used, each sword had the weight of a mountain. It could be said to be the strongest upper-grade martial arts technique. It was extremely powerful. Moreover, Wang Hu had already cultivated the 5 Mountain Swordsmanship to the perfection level. Not giving Xiao Chen any chance to breathe, Wang Hu's attack was stronger than the previous one. Because Wang Hu's 5 Mountain Swordsmanship had reached the perfection level, and Xiao Chen's sword Shadow Strike was only at the perfection level, in a head-on confrontation, Xiao Chen was no match for Wang Hu. Seeing that Wang Hu was gradually gaining the upper hand, the crowd unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. If Xiao Chen could defeat Wang Hu, it would really drive them crazy. Even if Wang Hu had suppressed his cultivation level, it would still be difficult for them to accept. But fortunately, looking at the current situation, Wang Hu should be confident of victory. Xiao Chen did not have any upper-grade martial arts techniques that had reached the perfection level, so he could not be Wang Hu's match. Many disciples could see that Xiao Chen was at a disadvantage. On the high platform, Song Xian and the other two said casually, "This kid, if he doesn't have any tricks up his sleeve, I'm afraid he's going to lose. It's already not bad. After all, he's only 18 years old, and Wang Hu is already 24 years old. It's really difficult for an 18-year-old to cultivate an upper-grade martial arts technique to the perfection level. At least, we didn't achieve it when we were his age." Song Yun and Song Long spoke one after another. They also felt that Xiao Chen was going to lose. Hearing their words, Song Xian smiled indifferently and said, "That's why I said that the two of you don't have as good eyesight as me." Look carefully. When Song Xian said this, Song Yun and Song Long looked at Xiao Chen in confusion. At first, they did not notice anything, but soon, their faces changed at the same time. This kid, as the three strongest people of the East Sword Pavilion, Song Yun and Song Long's eyesight was naturally not weak. They quickly saw that Xiao Chen's sword Shadow Strike had the power of the perfection level. At the beginning, it was only at the perfection level, but now it was half a step into the perfection level. Could it be that this kid was using Wang Hu as a whetstone? To hone his sword Shadow Strike? After guessing Xiao Chen's thoughts, Song Yun and Song Long's expressions became interesting. They originally thought that Xiao Chen was going to lose, but now it seemed that as long as Xiao Chen's sword Shadow Strike could reach the perfection level, he would have the qualifications to fight Wang Hu. At that time, it would be hard to say who would win and who would lose. How is it? I told you that the two of you don't have as good eyesight as me. You can't even see this, Song Xian said proudly when he noticed the change in their expressions. Song Long ignored Song Xian and stared at Xiao Chen. After a long while, he said slowly, I think I understand why you want to accept this kid. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 18. Who would have thought that Xiao Chen's Shadow Blade was already half a step into the transcendent realm? Xiao Chen remained calm in the face of danger. In such a fierce battle, he could even consciously use Wang Hu to refine his Shadow Blade. Wasn't this a little too monstrous? Even Song Yun and Song Long secretly nodded, thinking that Xiao Chen was indeed not bad. Just as the three of them were talking, the situation of the battle suddenly changed. Xiao Chen finally grasped the opportunity to break through, and the Shadow Blade naturally broke through to the transcendent realm. The Shadow Blade that had reached the transcendent realm was completely able to compete with Wang Hu's Five Mountains sword technique. Wang Hu's face suddenly changed when he felt the power of the Shadow Blade suddenly increase. He looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief and said, How is it possible? Your Shadow Blade, it was clearly in the perfect realm just now. How did it suddenly break through to the transcendent realm? Breaking through in battle? This was impossible. Cultivating martial skills in the middle of a battle, was this something a normal person could do? Facing Wang Hu's surprise, Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, I have to thank Senior Brother for your help. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to perfect the Shadow Blade and break through to the transcendent realm. If it weren't for the huge pressure that Wang Hu gave him, Xiao Chen indeed wouldn't have been able to break through to the transcendent realm in such a short time. Hearing this, Wang Hu's heart suddenly surged with anger. It seemed that this guy was using him to practice. Feeling that he was being looked down upon, Wang Hu immediately roared angrily, and the attack in his hand was like a huge wave that came crashing down. He had already used all his strength, but unfortunately, after the breakthrough of the Shadow Blade, Xiao Chen was no longer afraid of Wang Hu. The two of them fought back and forth. In the face of Wang Hu's fierce attacks, Xiao Chen didn't fall behind at all and continued to fight head-on. Seeing the sudden reversal of the situation, many of the surrounding disciples were shocked. How did Xiao Chen's Shadow Blade suddenly break through to the transcendent realm? Could it be that he has been hiding his strength all this time? In fact, his Shadow Blade has already reached the transcendent realm? Ignorant. Before the battle, Xiao Chen's Shadow Blade was indeed in the perfect realm. However, during the battle, Xiao Chen used the huge pressure that Wang Hu gave him to forcibly perfect the Shadow Blade and broke through to the transcendent realm. The outer sect disciples didn't know how Xiao Chen's Shadow Blade had broken through to the transcendent realm, but the inner sect disciples knew that before the battle, Xiao Chen's Shadow Blade had indeed not broken through to the transcendent realm. After the battle, the transcendent realm's transcendent realm is F asterisk 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 S asterisk 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 S asterisk 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 S asterisk S asterisk T. Transcendent 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 realm of the transcendent realm. Of the transcendent transcendent realm. Transcendent transcendent realm. That was Xiao Chen's understanding of the transcendent realm. But Wang Hu hadn't reached this realm. He was only at the foundation establishment realm, but he hadn't reached the transcendent realm. Wang Hu was gradually suppressed by Xiao Chen. He became more and more anxious. Finally, Xiao Chen seized the opportunity and successfully hit Wang Hu. He flicked the tip of his sword and left a wound on Wang Hu's chest. Wang Hu was the one who was injured first. This blow completely enraged Wang Hu. Wang Hu didn't know whether it was intentional or not. Suddenly, a horrible cultivation fluctuation burst out from Wang Hu's body. He no longer suppressed his cultivation and instantly recovered to the completion of the Yellow Realm. Feeling the horrible spirit of Wang Hu, Xiao Chen frowned. But at the same time, before Wang Hu could make a move, Song Xian on the high platform waved his hand and a giant palm of spiritual power directly suppressed Wang Hu. Wang Hu's eyes were burning with anger as he was mercilessly suppressed by Song Xian. He didn't expect such a result. He was the number one disciple of the Outer Gate. It was a shame that he couldn't defeat Xiao Chen in the same realm. Wang Hu, it was a fair fight, but you broke the rules. You will be grounded in the sword prison for a month. Song Xian didn't care about Wang Hu's anger and said indifferently. As Song Xian's voice faded, two deacons immediately came forward and forcibly took Wang Hu away. Wang Hu would spend the next month in the sword prison. Wang Hu was forcibly taken away, but before he left, he coldly glanced at Xiao Chen. Obviously, Wang Hu hated him because of today's failure. Sigh, what a petty person. He couldn't accept the failure, but he blamed it on me. Knowing that this matter would not end well, Xiao Chen sighed helplessly. But he didn't take it to heart. When Wang Hu came out, he would beat Song Xian's disciple. What could Wang Hu do by then? After defeating Wang Hu, no one dared to challenge Xiao Chen for more than 100 breaths. What a joke, even Wang Hu had been defeated. Who else in the entire outer sect could defeat Xiao Chen at the same cultivation level? In any case, there was no one else in the outer sect. Only the inner sect disciples had the ability to defeat Xiao Chen. Unfortunately, the inner sect disciples obviously wouldn't go on stage. Even if they won, it would be embarrassing. There was no reason for them to go on stage. With no one else challenging, the rest was simple. According to the procedure, Xiao Chen held the apprenticeship ceremony. First, he paid respects to the founder of the East Sword Pavilion. Next, he performed the apprenticeship ceremony to Song Xian. It took nearly 2 hours for Xiao Chen to complete the apprenticeship ceremony. The apprenticeship ceremony ended successfully. Because of the battle strength and talent Xiao Chen had displayed, no one caused any trouble during the entire process. Although there was still some jealousy, everyone had acknowledged this fact. At least at the same cultivation level, even Wang Hu was no match for Xiao Chen. Therefore, there was naturally no problem for Xiao Chen to become Song Xian's disciple. From today onwards, Xiao Chen was officially Song Xian's third disciple, and also his last disciple. Song Xian looked at Xiao Chen with a smile, took out a green sword from his storage ring, and handed it to Xiao Chen. Since you've just joined the sect, I don't have anything good to give you. Moreover, there are some things that you won't be able to use with your current cultivation. This sword is called Qingyun. I'll give it to you, Qingyun sword. Upon hearing Song Xian's words, Song Yun and Song Long were stunned. Obviously, they did not expect Song Xian to pass the Qingyun sword to Xiao Chen. Although the Qingyun sword was not a god weapon and was only a dark weapon, it was given to Song Xian by their master. Now that Song Xian had given it to Xiao Chen, what did it mean? After receiving the Qingyun sword from Song Xian, Xiao Chen did not know the origin of the Qingyun sword. He only knew that the Qingyun sword was a dark weapon, and that one could own a dark weapon at the Yellow Realm. For a moment, Xiao Chen could not help but feel excited. According to the strength of the weapon, weapons were divided into ordinary weapons, dark weapons, earth weapons, and divine weapons. And these dark weapons corresponded to warriors of the mysterious Yuan realm. Being able to own a dark weapon at the Yellow Realm, one could tell how much they envied Xiao Chen from the envious and jealous eyes of the many outer disciples below. Please collect, recommend, reward. Chapter 19. After carefully putting away the Qingyun sword, Xiao Chen left the outer yard under the guidance of Song Xian. They went all the way to the back mountain of the Eastern Sword Pavilion, where Song Xian lived. He occupied a mountain peak by himself. It was a very quiet place. There was a green bamboo forest at the top of the mountain. In the middle of the bamboo forest was a simple wooden house. It was the first time Xiao Chen had experienced the thrill of flying in the air since he brought Xiao Chen there. His yearning for the path of martial arts became even more intense. This was what it meant to be a truly powerful cultivator. There was nowhere in the world that he could not go. He thought to himself that one day he would reach the same level as Zhang Xian. Soon, the two landed outside the wooden house. At this time, there was a girl practicing swordsmanship outside the wooden house. Seeing the girl, Xiao Chen was stunned at first, and then he said involuntarily, "She's so big." The girl was in her 20s. Because she was practicing her swordsmanship, her chest was billowing with her movements. This must be what Tong Yen was talking about. She was a very beautiful woman. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the girl shot him a cold look and shouted coldly, "Lecher, do you want to die? Yen don't be rude. This is your junior brother." The girl shouted angrily. However, before she could finish her words, Zhang Xian scolded her. The girl's name was Qi Yen. She was Zhang Xian's second disciple and Xiao Chen's second senior sister. After scolding Qi Yen, Zhang Xian said to Xiao Chen, "This is your second senior sister. You two should get to know each other." After introducing them to each other, Zhang Xian left as if he had something else to do. After Zhang Xian left, Qi Yan's eyes flashed with a touch of playfulness. She looked at Xiao Chen with a charming smile and said, "So you are the new junior brother accepted by our master. You are at the initial yellow realm. TSK, your cultivation is a bit low. However, you are only 18 years old. Since you are already my junior brother and sister, I have to give you a greeting gift," Qi Yan said with a smile. Upon hearing her words, Xiao Chen keenly sensed a dangerous aura and subconsciously took a step back. At the same time, he revealed an unnatural smile and said, "Second senior sister, there's no need for a greeting gift. I just remembered that I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Qi Yan's smile showed that she was up to no good. After saying that, Xiao Chen turned around and ran. Xiao Chen, Qi Yan's speed. Qi Yan caught up with him in an instant. Qi Yan blocked Xiao Chen's way and said with a smile, "Junior brother, are you in such a hurry? It's okay. You can leave after I give you a greeting gift." There was no way for him to retreat. Qi Yan was an inner disciple who was recognized as the number one in the inner gate. Her cultivation had reached the completion of mysterious Ian realm. He was no match for her. He forced a smile and said, "Senior sister, I really don't need it." Qi Yan kept thinking about how to escape. However, she obviously did not intend to let Xiao Chen go. As soon as Xiao Chen finished speaking, Qi Yan had already punched him. The smile on her face instantly disappeared and was replaced with a look of shame and anger. "What did you say just now? Lecher, since our master is not here, as your senior sister, I have to teach you a lesson." It turned out that she was angry because of what he said just now. But this woman was too narrow-minded. He just said it casually. Moreover, it was already very big. He finally figured out why Qi Yan was angry, but it was too late. Qi Yan's fist had already arrived. She had already deliberately restrained her strength. Otherwise, with Qi Yan's strength, one punch would be enough to seriously injure Xiao Chen. Don't underestimate this woman. She was a terrifying existence in the inner gate of the East Sword Pavilion. People had given her the nickname Hag. She was very beautiful, but her character was as violent as thunder. In the entire East Sword Pavilion, no one dared to provoke this hag. Xiao Chen was to blame for not knowing Qi Yan's character. Otherwise, he would not have said those words even if he had to suffocate to death. There was no doubt that it was a violent beating. When Qi Yan stopped, Xiao Chen was already lying on the ground with a bloody nose and a swollen face. After venting her anger, Qi Yan's mood had obviously improved a lot. A smile appeared on her beautiful face again. She looked at Xiao Chen and said lightly, All right, senior sister forgives you for your disrespect just now. Also, if master asks about your injuries, you should know what to say, right? She beat him up and forbade him from telling his master. Hearing Qi Yan's words, Xiao Chen was unhappy. Seeing that Xiao Chen had no intention to answer, Qi Yan raised her small fist and said with a smile, "Why, didn't you hear what I said? Or do you not like the greeting gift I gave you and want to add something else?" Threat, a naked threat. He was very unhappy, but there was no other way. He could not beat her. In the end, Xiao Chen could only nod pitifully and said, "If master asks, I will say that I fell down by myself." "Yes, not bad. You're worth teaching. Don't worry, senior sister will protect you in the future. If anyone bullies you, tell senior sister and senior sister will help you deal with them." After hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Qi Yan nodded in satisfaction and continued to practice her swordsmanship. Then, a strange scene appeared outside the wooden house. Qi Yan was practicing her swordsmanship, while Xiao Chen was like a wrong daughter-in-law who constantly served tea to Qi Yan. She simply treated herself as a servant. When she was thirsty, she wanted her to pass her water. When she was tired, she wanted her to massage her shoulders. While massaging Qi Yan's shoulders, Xiao Chen cursed inwardly. "Little b****, just you wait. One day, I will make you regret it." Xiao Chen had never been bullied like this since he was young. But he couldn't help it. Who asked him to be inferior? If he could defeat this little b****, Xiao Chen would definitely teach her a lesson without hesitation. Under this hellish devastation, Xiao Chen finally endured until Tsang Xian returned. The moment he saw Tsang Xian, Xiao Chen was so emotional that he almost cried. He never thought that he would miss Tsang Xian so much one day. After Tsang Xian returned, Qi Yan's attitude changed instantly. She obediently served tea to Tsang Xian and constantly asked about his well-being. It was as though she was a completely different person. After taking a sip of tea, Tsang Xian glanced at the bruised and swollen face of Xiao Chen and asked curiously, "Chener, what happened to your face?" Upon hearing Tsang Xian's words, Xiao Chen subconsciously glanced at Qi Yan. Qi Yan also cast a threatening look at Xiao Chen. Seeing this, Xiao Chen could only suppress the grievance in his heart and replied, "It's nothing. Disciple accidentally fell down just now, Did you fall?" Upon hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Tsang Xian looked at Qi Yan doubtfully. It was apparent that he was well aware of his second disciple's temper. Facing Tsang Xian's gaze, Qi Yan cutely stuck out her tongue as though she was acting coquettishly. "Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 20. Tsang Xian shook his head with a bitter smile. He knew that Xiao Chen's injuries were definitely caused by Qi Yan. His second disciple's character was indeed too fiery, causing the entire East Sword Pavilion to turn pale at the mere mention of her name. Even the core disciples were unwilling to offend this hag. Tsang Xian did not point it out. After a bitter smile, he called the two of them to sit in front of him and said with a serious expression, "There's something I need you to do. A spirit vein has been discovered in the Sword Demon Mountain Range. According to the preliminary investigation, the reserves are very large. However, because the Sword Demon Mountain Range is located at the border between my East Sword Pavilion and the Blood Demon Hall, we have a disagreement with the Blood Demon Hall regarding the ownership of this spirit vein," Tsang Xian slowly said. Upon hearing his words, Xiao Chen and Qi Yan's expressions turned serious. A spirit vein was something that every sect needed because the spirit stones extracted from it were not only a common currency among cultivators, but also a necessity for cultivation. A spirit vein that had never been extracted was enough to make a huge force like the East Sword Pavilion go to war. The East Sword Pavilion and the Blood Demon Hall secretly pondered. Xiao Chen did not know much about the Blood Demon Hall, but fortunately, Qi Yan explained to him. According to Qi Yan, the Blood Demon Hall was also a huge force in the Eastern Sun region. Its influence covered the 9 great empires, and its overall strength was comparable to the East Sword Pavilion. After a preliminary understanding of the Blood Demon Hall situation, Xiao Chen looked at Song Xian and asked, "Master, is the East Sword Pavilion and the Blood Demon Hall about to go to war?" It was indeed possible to go to war over a spirit vein. Once the East Sword Pavilion and the Blood Demon Hall went to war, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the entire Eastern Sun region would be instantly enveloped in the flames of war. Even the other big forces would join in. Song Xian was somewhat doubtful if a war was about to break out. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, he shook his head and said, "It hasn't reached that stage yet. After all, an all-out war would involve too much and could easily develop into an uncontrollable state. Therefore, after our discussion with the upper echelons of the Blood Demon Hall, we have decided to decide the ownership of this spirit vein through an arena competition. It was impossible to start an all-out war so easily. Therefore, after a discussion between the two sides, they finally decided that each side would send out 3 disciples to compete. The winner would be able to obtain the ownership of the spirit vein. Of course, there was a requirement for the 3 disciples sent out this time. 1 disciple in the Earth Mirror, 1 in the mysterious Aeon Realm, and 1 in the Yellow Realm. In other words, disciples in every realm had to fight against each other to show fairness. Should we send out an Earth Mirror expert, a mysterious Yuan stage expert and a Yellow stage expert? Xiao Chen asked after hearing Song Xian's request. That's right. This time, your senior brother will represent the Eastern Sword Pavilion's Earth Mirror disciples. As for the remaining 2 places, I plan to let the 2 of you go. It just so happens that one of you is in the mysterious Aeon Realm and the other is in the Yellow Realm," Song Xian said when he heard Xiao Chen talking to himself. He intended to send the 3 of them. Senior brother and Qi Yan were still acceptable. After all, one of them was a core disciple and the other was an inner disciple. Moreover, they were both outstanding disciples. However, although Xiao Chen was also in the Yellow Realm, he was only at the beginning of the Yellow Realm. Letting him represent the Eastern Sword Pavilion's Yellow Realm disciples was, "Master, junior brother, has only just entered the Eastern Sword Pavilion. Letting him go, isn't it a little?" Even Qi Yan felt that it was impossible. After all, Xiao Chen's cultivation was too low. Of course, it was also because he had not practiced for long. In the face of Qi Yan's doubts, Song Xian smiled and said, "This is not a problem. There is still a year before the agreed time, so Chen Er still has time. Moreover, other than Chen Er, I don't think there is anyone in the outer yard who can compete with Sky Blade of the Blood Demon Palace." "Sky Blade? Master, are you talking about Sky Blade, the number 1 disciple in the Blood Demon Palace's outer yard?" Qi Yan's expression changed slightly when she heard Song Xian's words. Compared to the Blood Demon Palace, the Eastern Sword Pavilion's outer yard was completely at a disadvantage. The key to all of this was Sky Blade. As the number 1 disciple of the Blood Demon Palace's outer yard, although Sky Blade was only 19 years old, he had been a legend since he was young. Speaking of which, he was somewhat similar to Xiao Chen. He had also shown the true dragon's potential since he was young. After that, he joined the Blood Demon Palace and made great progress. At the age of 19, he had reached the completion of the Yellow Realm. Moreover, he had defeated all the outer yard of the Blood Demon Palace and was recognized as the number 1 disciple of the Blood Demon Palace. It was said that Sky Blade had also comprehended Blade Chi and had broken through to the Small Success Realm. He had also once killed a warrior who was at the beginning of the mysterious Aeon Realm. It was no exaggeration to say that if Sky Blade represented the disciples of the Yellow Realm of the Blood Demon Palace, no one in the Eastern Sword Pavilion would be able to compete with him. If Wang Hu were to fight against Sky Blade, he would not even be able to withstand 10 moves. After falling into silence for a while, Qi Yan opened her mouth and said, "But master, even so, little junior brother is still no match for Sky Blade. Now, little junior brother's cultivation is only at the initial success of the Yellow Realm. If he were to fight against Sky Blade in the same realm, what's the difference between that and seeking death? It was too difficult to fight against Sky Blade. After all, Sky Blade was also a genius who could fight against people who were at a higher realm than him. In the face of Qi Yan's doubts, Song Xian smiled and said, "That's why I said there was still time. Because the spiritual pulse still needs to be further explored, the competition between the disciples of both sides will only start after a year. During this year, I plan to let you take Chen-Er out to practice. With your guidance, I believe Chen-Er will definitely grow up quickly. You should know that Skyblade is only 19 years old this year. What he can do, Chen-Er can naturally do as well. Moreover, if Chen-Er can survive in your hands for a year, I think Chen-Er will have a qualitative change." Song Xian was very clear about Qi Yan's temperament. With her guiding Xiao Chen, as long as Xiao Chen could survive this year, there would definitely be a qualitative change. Hearing Song Xian's words, Qi Yan's face revealed a somewhat excited smile. What did Master mean? I can torture little junior brother however I want? She was already somewhat excited. Indeed, if Xiao Chen could survive in her hands for a year, Qi Yan believed that Xiao Chen would definitely have a qualitative change. She looked at Xiao Chen as if she was looking at her prey. Facing Qi Yan's gaze, Xiao Chen couldn't help but shudder. Is this a joke? He had only been with Qi Yan for a short period of time, but he already felt like he was going to die. If he stayed for a year, it would be terrible. Moreover, this time, Song Xian had spoken, and Qi Yan was no longer restrained. Given her character, who knew how she would play with him? Could he endure her playing for a year? With a bitter face, Xiao Chen said without hesitation, "Master, I think I should cultivate by myself. Second senior sister is also busy, so there's no need to waste time on me. Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 21. Having already experienced his second senior sister's methods, Xiao Chen definitely did not want to go on a training trip with her for a year. If things went wrong, he might even lose his life. She was a shrew. Song Xian shook his head like a rattle drum. However, he still had no intention of changing his mind. "Chen-Er, you only have 1 year. Although 1 year is enough for you to improve a lot with your talent, it is absolutely impossible for you to reach the level where you can contend against Tian Dao. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Although your second senior sister's temper is a little explosive, I believe that under her guidance, your improvement speed will definitely be several times faster than normal," Song Xian slowly said. However, there was something that Song Xian did not say out loud in his heart. The prerequisite was that you have to survive this year. Without giving Xiao Chen a chance to speak, Song Xian directly took out a storage ring and handed it to Xiao Chen. "This is a mid-grade storage ring. Take it. I have already prepared enough healing pills for you and 100 high-grade martial skills." Everything had been prepared for Xiao Chen. The healing pills were naturally for Xiao Chen to survive, while the 100 high-grade martial skills were for Xiao Chen to cultivate. High-grade martial skills were the foundation of sword art. The more one cultivated, the deeper one's understanding of sword arts would naturally be. At the same time, one's foundation would also be more stable, and one's battle strength would naturally be stronger. Moreover, cultivating high-grade martial skills would also help Xiao Chen continue to comprehend sword qi. Xiao Chen helplessly received the mid-grade storage ring from Song Xian. Storage rings were also divided into different grades: low grade, middle grade, high grade, and top grade. A low-grade storage ring only had 10 cubic meters of space, while a mid-grade storage ring had 100 cubic meters of space and could store even more things. "Alright, get ready. You two can set off in 3 days. You only need to return before the end of the year exam. Chen-Er, for this year, you must listen to your senior sister's arrangements. She will not harm you." After handing the storage ring to Xiao Chen, Song Xian motioned for the two to leave. Without giving him the slightest chance to refuse, Xiao Chen left Song Xian's residence with Qi Yan. When they parted, Qi Yan turned her head and said to Xiao Chen with a smile, "Junior brother, see if you have any unfinished business in the next few days. Quickly deal with it. Also, write a letter to your family as a farewell." Qi Yan was obviously making fun of him. After saying that, Qi Yan left with a smile, leaving Xiao Chen gnashing his teeth in anger. Xiao Chen could no longer remain calm. He was about to lose his life, so how could he remain calm? Looking at Qi Yan's departing figure, Xiao Chen stood there in a daze. After a while, Xiao Chen seemed to have made up his mind about something. He turned around and ran back to his dustless residence. He originally thought that he was not far from a bright future after becoming Song Xian's disciple. Who would have thought that there was no bright future ahead, but an endless abyss? How could it be possible to cultivate with that hag for a year? Given her temper, even if he did not die, he would be crippled. He absolutely could not fall into the hands of that hag. Xiao Chen rushed all the way back to the dustless residence. As soon as he entered, he hurriedly started to pack his things. Seeing Xiao Chen's appearance, Qin Yao and Qin Luo also walked up to him and asked curiously, "Young master, what's wrong? What happened?" The two sisters were originally very happy that Xiao Chen had successfully become Song Xian's disciple. But why did Xiao Chen frantically start to pack his things after returning with Song Xian? Xiao Chen was not in the mood to explain anything to the two sisters. "There's no time to explain. I have to go into hiding. Take care of yourselves during this period. I estimate that I will only be back after a year." It was impossible for him to follow that hag out to train. Since that was the case, he might as well sneak away and train alone for a year before returning. At that time, even if that hag caught him, she could not do anything to him. With that, Xiao Chen rushed out of the dustless residence and headed straight for the East Sword Pavilion. There was no time to lose and he could not be caught by that hag. Otherwise, he would not be able to escape. Xiao Chen sprinted all the way and soon arrived at the mountain gate of the East Sword Pavilion. Looking at the mountain gate in front of him, Xiao Chen finally heaved a sigh of relief and chuckled softly. "I'm finally here. As long as I leave the mountain gate, I will be able to fly freely in the vast sky and leap freely in the vast sea. Bitch, you want me to train with you for a year?" Dream on. Xiao Chen's mood improved, but before he could rejoice for long, a beautiful figure slowly walked out from behind a stone pillar at the mountain gate. It was Xiao Chen's second senior sister, Qi Yan. "Little junior brother, where are you going in such a hurry? Do you want me to give you a ride?" Qi Yan asked with a smile as she looked at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was stunned on the spot. What's going on? Why is this woman here? His body unconsciously took a few steps back. "I'm done for. I'm blocked by this bitch." Qi Yan had long guessed that Xiao Chen might run away, so she had been waiting for him here. She did not expect that she would really be able to block him. Since the escape plan failed, the next thing was simple. Xiao Chen was once again beaten up by Qi Yan and was forcefully brought to the dustless residence by Qi Yan. "All right, since I have nothing to prepare and you seem to be ready, let's set off tomorrow," Qi Yan said with a smile as she sat in front of Xiao Chen. "It's over. It's really over this time." Hearing Qi Yan's words, Xiao Chen despaired. He definitely couldn't run away. Next, he could only think about how to survive in the hands of this she-devil. 1 year that night, Xiao Chen thought of countless ways, but no matter how he thought about it, he felt that his chances of surviving a year were slim. After all, this woman's methods were simply ruthless. When she was in a good mood, she might care about their relationship as fellow disciples. But once she was in a bad mood, she would definitely torture him to death. Unfortunately, this woman's temper was like a flamethrower. Who knew when she would be in a bad mood? Being with Qi Yan felt like sleeping while hugging an atomic bomb. You didn't know when she would explode, and once she did, it would be fatal. Xiao Chen did not sleep the entire night, nor was he in the mood to train. The next morning, when Xiao Chen opened the door to his room, he immediately saw Qi Yan sitting in the courtyard. Qi Yan smiled when she saw Xiao Chen walk out. "Junior brother, are you ready? Let's go then," she said, and prepared to leave with Xiao Chen. At the same time, someone leaked the news, and Mo Jie and the others hurried to the dustless residence. As soon as they entered the door, Mo Jie didn't notice Qi Yan at all and shouted directly. "Junior brother Xiao Chen, I heard that you're going out for training with that shrew. What's going on? Aren't you afraid of death? If you train with her, you won't survive even if you have 9 lives. Please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 22. Mo Jie didn't notice Qi Yan at all. As he spoke, he strode towards Xiao Chen. Upon hearing Mo Jie's words, Xiao Chen kept winking at him. However, Mo Jie didn't seem to realize the impending danger and continued to speak. "Finished. This guy is definitely finished today." Xiao Chen prayed for Mo Jie in his heart. While Mo Jie was speaking leisurely, Qi Yan, who was behind him, finally spoke. Her tone was calm and didn't contain any anger. But as soon as Qi Yan spoke, Mo Jie froze on the spot, and the smile on his face instantly froze. "Junior brother, I brought my junior brother out for training, and you seem to have a problem with it." Upon hearing Qi Yan's words, Mo Jie turned his head mechanically and saw Qi Yan sneering at him. "This matriarch. No, senior sister Qi, why are you here?" Mo Jie was completely dumbfounded upon seeing Qi Yan, and spoke incoherently. After saying that, Mo Jie looked at Xiao Chen with a reproachful expression. His meaning was obvious. "Why didn't you remind me?" Facing Mo Jie's reproach, Xiao Chen revealed a helpless expression. "I already reminded you, but you didn't pay attention." As expected, Mo Jie was beaten up by Qi Yan, and his ending was even more miserable than Xiao Chen's. Although such injuries wouldn't leave any sequelae, it was inevitable that he would have to lie in bed for a month. Lying on the ground like a dead dog, Qi Yan clapped her hands and smiled at Qin Shuru and the rest. "What about you guys? Do you have a problem with me too?" "No. Absolutely not. Xiao Chen is lucky to be able to train with senior sister Qi. We can't wait to support him, so how can we have a problem with him?" Facing Qi Yan's question, everyone shook their heads and replied. They didn't dare to hesitate at all. In response, Qi Yan nodded in satisfaction and said to Xiao Chen, "Let's go, my junior brother. Time is of the essence, and you don't have much time to waste." Having said that, she walked out of the courtyard and wasn't afraid that Xiao Chen wouldn't follow her. It was already impossible for him to escape. Xiao Chen greeted Qin Shuru and the others and prepared to chase after Qi Yan. However, he had only taken a few steps when Qin Shuru called out to him. She then handed Xiao Chen a storage ring with a blushing face and said softly with her head lowered, "Here are some clothes to change into and some spirit stones. When you're outside, you have to be careful. Don't try to be brave." Qin Shuru had always been secretly in love with Xiao Chen, but the little girl was too shy to say it out loud. This time, after hearing that Xiao Chen was going to train outside for a year, Qin Shuru finally mustered up the courage to confess his love to Xiao Chen. She could feel Qin Shuru's love for her, but she didn't want to talk about it so early. She smiled and didn't express her feelings clearly to Qin Shuru. After thanking him, Xiao Chen took the storage ring and left. Xiao Chen didn't respond and didn't know what Xiao Chen meant to her. Looking at Xiao Chen's back, Qin Shuru stood on the spot with reddened eyes. At this moment, another female disciple came to Qin Shuru's side and comforted her gently. "Shuru, junior brother Xiao Chen's future is far beyond our reach. With the talent that Xiao Chen displayed, his future achievements were unimaginable. And the woman who was worthy of him must be a peerless beauty." Qin Shuru knew what the female disciple meant, but she still said stubbornly, "I know, but I don't want to give up." Xiao Chen was the first person that Qin Shuru liked since she was a child. She knew that the distance between Xiao Chen and her would only get further and further apart, But even so, she still didn't want to give up. Upon hearing Qin Shure's answer, the crowd sighed helplessly. Frankly speaking, Qin Shure's appearance wasn't bad and was even better than Qi Yan's. However, Qin Shure was already rated as the #1 beauty in the outer sect. But if she wanted to be worthy of someone like Xiao Qin, looks weren't enough. The girl had her own stubbornness. At the same time, Xiao Qin and Qi Yan had arrived at the main square of the outer door. Qi Yan had specially applied for a green-feathered eagle from the Sword Pavilion for this experience, so that it would be easier for them to travel. They went all the way to the outer sect main square. When Xiao Qin and Yi Futian arrived and saw the scene in the main square, Xiao Qin was stunned. What was going on? The entire main square was filled with people. There were over 10,000 outer disciples, inner disciples, and even a few dozen core disciples. This lineup was comparable to his apprenticeship ceremony. Are these guys here to see me off? Xiao Qin was puzzled. Why are there so many people here? Are they all here to see me off? Xiao Qin's guess was right. They were indeed here to see me off, but not to see me off. Instead, they were here to see Qi Yan off. The female Yiksha was leaving the sect. This was great news for countless inner and core disciples. So, early in the morning, everyone rushed over to see her off. In fact, their real purpose was to see her leave with their own eyes. Senior sister, have a safe journey. Senior sister, take care. Senior sister, we will miss you. You must take good care of yourself outside. Along the way, everyone saluted Qi Yan and said that they were reluctant to part with her. However, the joy in their eyes couldn't be concealed. It was as if they couldn't wait for Qi Yan to leave as soon as possible. Qi Yan glared fiercely at the crowd. Seeing this, they immediately shut their mouth. At the same time, an eagle screeched and a huge green-feathered eagle descended from the sky. Qi Yan took the lead and jumped onto the eagle's back. Then, she looked at Xiao Qin and said, "Come up." Looking at the green-feathered eagle in front of him, it was a second-grade demonic beast, equivalent to a human warrior of the mysterious Yuan realm. Demonic beasts and humans were also divided into levels. However, those beasts were only equivalent to the Foundation establishment and channel opening stage. Only when they reached the level of a demonic beast could they be compared to a human warrior of the Yellow Realm. A first-grade demonic beast was equivalent to a warrior of the Yellow Realm, while a second-grade demonic beast was equivalent to a human warrior of the mysterious Yuan realm. In order to give him some experience, the Sword Garret was willing to send a green-feathered eagle. It seemed that the Sword Garret valued this experience very much. After all, his task was very important. 1 year later, he would have to face Skyblade of the Blood Demon Palace. Skyblade was a recognized genius. His legend was no less than Xiao Qin's. Leaping onto the green-feathered eagle's back, under Qi Yan's command, the green-feathered eagle flapped its wings and carried the two of them into the sky. Soon, they disappeared. Seeing the two of them leave, the many inner and core disciples in the square cheered. "She's gone, she's finally gone. I'm not dreaming, am I?" After 2 years, the female Yiksha has finally left the sect again. The good days are coming, God bless us, God bless us. Please add, recommend, reward. Chapter 23. Many disciples cheered because of Qi Yan's departure. At the same time, Xiao Qin rode the green-feathered eagle and quickly left the Qingyun Mountains. Speaking of which, Xiao Qin had been a disciple of the East Sword Pavilion for more than 2 years. This was the first time he had gone out to gain experience. He should have been full of joy, but when he saw Qi Yan sitting cross-legged in front of him, Xiao Qin felt that his future was dark. Xiao Qin had always been looking forward to going out and experiencing the vastness and magnificence of the Dongyang region. However, with the addition of Qi Yan, the fire of yearning was completely extinguished, as if a basin of cold water had been poured from the sky. The green-feathered eagle was very fast. Along the way, Qi Yan did not speak much. She did not even tell Xiao Qin where they were going. In this regard, Xiao Chun could only sit cross-legged on the eagle's back with a belly full of dissatisfaction. I don't know what this bitch is up to, Xiao Chun secretly thought as he glanced at Qi Yan's back. The green-feathered eagle finally landed after 3 days without stopping. Then, under Qi Yan's command, it flew towards a mountain range. Apparently, Qi Yan had asked it to wait in that mountain range. After sending the green-feathered eagle away, Qi Yan took Xiao Chun to a city called Shangri-La. It was a very strange name. What kind of city would be called Shangri-La? Moreover, every person who entered the city had to pay 10 low-grade spirit stones. This entrance fee was simply outrageous. One must know that the outer disciples of the East Sword Pavilion only paid 10 low-grade spirit stones a month. The two of them paid 20 low-grade spirit stones. As soon as they entered the city, Xiao Chun was completely attracted by the scene in front of him. Bustling, what was bustling? This Shangri-La charged such a high entrance fee, but there was still an endless stream of people entering the city. Moreover, on both sides of the street, there were many shops and people moving about. He had never seen a city that was so lively. Even the imperial capital of the Lingfeng country was far inferior to it. Facing the stunned Xiao Chun, Qi Yan curled her lips and said, "Don't be surprised. This Shangri-La is the most famous city in the entire East Sun region. Moreover, the city lord's mansion here is also a giant. It is called the Leshan Mansion, and its strength is not inferior to our East Sword Pavilion. Moreover, because of the Leshan Mansion's presence, the people of the East Sun region call this Shangri-La City of Immortals. It means that this city is where the immortals live. As long as you have spirit stones, you can find any pleasure in the world." While introducing the Shangri-La to Xiao Chun, Qi Yan walked into the city and directly found a restaurant. Qi Yan ordered a table full of dishes and a pot of wine for a long time. Then, she called Xiao Chun to eat. He was completely confused by Qi Yan. What was this woman trying to do? What happened to the experience? Why did she bring him to this Shangri-La? Moreover, she was so good to him. Not only did she not hit him, but she also treated him with good food and drink. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Xiao Chun had already noticed Qi Yan's abnormality, but Xiao Chun could not guess what Qi Yan wanted to do. Throughout the meal, Qi Yan doted on Xiao Chun so much that even Xiao Chun himself was a little frightened. After the delicious meal, Qi Yan said to Xiao Chun with a smile, "Little junior brother, you've eaten and drunk. Next up, it's time for the experience. Here it comes." Hearing Qi Yan's words, Xiao Chun immediately became alert. He was always on guard against Qi Yan's trick. Xiao Chun was secretly on guard along the way. However, after exiting the restaurant, Qi Yan had no intention of leaving the Shangri-La. Instead, she brought Xiao Chun to a huge circular palace. That's right, this was a palace built entirely of diamonds. The entire palace occupied a huge area and the roof was sealed shut with only a stone door for entry and exit. Upon arriving outside the palace, Qi Yan asked Xiao Chun to wait by the side while she chatted with the two guards. Xiao Chun did not know what Qi Yan said to them, but he felt that the two guards kept looking at him while they were talking. While the two guards were sizing him up, Xiao Chun was also sizing them up. Although he could not determine their specific cultivation base, Xiao Chun was sure that they were at least at the Mystic Aeon stage. Who was the owner of this palace to use 2 Mystic Aeon stage warriors as guards? What a grand display! They did not have to wait for long. After 100 breaths, Qi Yan called out to Xiao Chun and the two of them entered the palace together. They came to a stone room. As usual, Qi Yan asked Xiao Chun to wait outside while she entered the stone room alone. After 10 minutes, Qi Yan came out of the stone room and ignored Xiao Chun as if she did not know him and walked away directly. "Senior sister." Seeing that Qi Yan was ignoring him, Xiao Chun shouted and chased after her. However, he was stopped before he could even take a few steps. "You?" Xiao Chun was stopped by 2 strong men who were also at the Mystic Aeon stage. He looked at the two of them and asked. Following his question, a middle-aged man walked out of the stone room. The man had only one eye and a hideous scar on his other eye. He was tall and strong. He looked at Xiao Chen and said indifferently, "That woman is your senior sister, right? Just now, she sold you to us for 500 low-grade spirit stones. You have to stay here for half a year before you can leave." The middle-aged man's voice was very calm, but Xiao Chen was stunned after hearing this. He was sold? For a moment, Xiao Chen did not react. In the end, the middle-aged man explained the whole story to him. This place was called the Death Arena. It was a place that specialized in life and death battles. Some martial artists could sell themselves to the Death Arena. There was a time limit, and within the time limit, you had to fight for the Death Arena. Your opponent could be a human or a monster beast. Through these life and death battles, the Death Arena was able to attract people to participate in the gambling, allowing the Death Arena to make money. To put it simply, take Xiao Chen as an example. He was sold by Qi Yan for half a year. During this half a year, Xiao Chen had to fight for the Death Arena. After half a year, if Xiao Chen was still alive, he could leave. If he died midway, there would naturally be no future for him. He finally understood what kind of place the Death Arena was. It did not care about life and death. To put it bluntly, he was now a slave of the Death Arena. He had to fight whoever they wanted him to. After understanding everything, a moment later, an earth-shattering roar sounded from the Death Arena. "Qi Yan, you bitch. I'm not done with you, please collect, recommend, reward." Chapter 24. Outside the Death Arena, Qi Yan had a smile on her face as she muttered to herself, "Little junior brother, senior sister believes in you. You will definitely survive." After exchanging Xiao Chen for 500 low-grade spirit stones, Qi Yan went straight to the largest casino in the city. Xiao Chen did not expect that Qi Yan would sell him out. With an angry shout, Xiao Chen calmed down. At this point, it was obviously impossible for him to run away. The Death Arena was backed by the Leshan Prefecture. Since he had already paid, they would definitely not let him leave. It was useless even if he was a disciple of the Eastern Sword Pavilion. After all, they did not force him. It was his own senior sister who sold him out. Seeing that Xiao Chen had calmed down so quickly, the one-eyed man was also a little surprised. He thought that although this kid was young, his temperament was not bad. He was able to accept everything in such a short time. Not bad. He secretly praised Xiao Chen, but this kind of praise could not change anything. Everything still had to be done according to the agreement. He had already signed an agreement with Qi Yan. At this time, the one-eyed man also truthfully told Xiao Chen the contents of the agreement. "This is the agreement that your senior sister signed for you. You only need to remember 3 things. First, the Death Arena will buy you for half a year. Within half a year, you must unconditionally participate in all the battles arranged for you by the Death Arena. Second, your battle frequency is once every 2 days. Third, because your senior sister said that you are a genius, your rating is S-class. That is to say, in every battle, your opponent will be at least 1 level higher than you. There is no upper limit. For every warrior, the Death Arena would give them a rating, starting from C-class, followed by C, B, A, and S. C-class was the weakest, which also meant that a C-class warrior would not meet someone with a higher cultivation level than him. As for B and A classes, they might meet someone with a higher cultivation level than them, but they would not meet them in every battle. Moreover, the opponent's cultivation level could only be 1 level higher. As for the strongest S-class, it was just like what was said earlier. The opponent in every battle had to be at least 1 level higher than you, and there was no upper limit. In other words, you might encounter an opponent 1 level higher than you, or 2 levels higher than you, or even 3 levels higher than you. It was not impossible for it to be 3 levels higher than you. S-class? Hearing the one-eyed man's words, Xiao Chen's anger exploded again. Qi Yan, this bitch, not only sold me, but also. He was very clear why this bitch wanted him to become an S-class warrior. It was completely because he could sell it for a few more spirit stones. Devil, she was simply a devil. He was her little junior brother, and she actually did such a heartless thing. Every other day, he would have to face a battle of life and death, and the opponent would be at least one level higher than him. In his heart, he wanted to skin this bitch alive, but it was obviously unrealistic. Now, he should think about how to survive for the next 6 months. They arranged a place for Xiao Chen to stay. It was a sealed stone room. Although it was simple, it had everything he needed. Furthermore, if Xiao Chen had any requests, he could tell the guards. As long as the requests were not too excessive, they would usually be satisfied. Of course, that was with the exception of leaving the arena. Sitting cross-legged on a cushion in the stone room, Xiao Chen wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Was this the so-called experience? This was completely forcing him to the road of death. One must know that in the death arena, victory and defeat could only be determined by life and death. There was no such thing as stopping at a certain point. It was either you die or I die. After a silent night, Xiao Chen ushered in his first death arena the next day. Inside the huge circular palace there was a huge deathmatch arena in the center. It was surrounded by hard and tall walls that were tens of meters tall. On top of the high walls, there were densely packed seats for the guests who came to watch the battle. The first death arena was between Xiao Chen and a warrior at the profound Yellow Realm. Before it started, the auditorium was already full of people. At the same time, the betting about this battle had been opened. The odds for Xiao Chen were 1 to 2. While people were placing their bets, in the center of the death arena, a burly man, who should be the host, was working hard to exaggerate the atmosphere of the death arena. Under this man's exaggeration, the atmosphere gradually became more and more intense. At the same time, the two sides were finally about to enter the arena. Next, let me grandly introduce the two superiors of this battle. The first one to enter is the Black Tower, who has won 3 battles in a row and is known as the Iron Hand Invincible. With a loud voice, he introduced the two superiors of the death arena to the audience. Along with this man's voice, a muscular man, who was more than 2 meters tall, walked out of the stone door on the left. This man's cultivation was at the profound Yellow Realm. His skin was extremely dark, and his eyes unconsciously emitted a faint murderous intent. With Black Tower's entrance, a burst of cheers resounded. Then, the host turned his eyes to the stone door on the right and said, "The next one to enter the arena is the newly nominated S-level warrior of the death arena, the elite outer disciple of the East Sword Pavilion, Xiao Chen." Without any fear of Xiao Chen's identity, he directly announced the name of the East Sword Pavilion. Hearing that he was a disciple of the East Sword Pavilion, the audience became even more excited. Rarely did disciples of the suzerain participate in the death arena. Therefore, every time a disciple of the suzerain participated, everyone was very excited. After all, the combat power of the disciples of the suzerain was much stronger than that of the individual practitioners. In the thunderous cheers, Xiao Chen calmly walked out of the stone door. He was 1.8 meters tall, and his body was a little thin. In front of Black Tower, it was obvious that he was much shorter. Looking at Black Tower in front of him, Xiao Chen knew that he was his first opponent. Instead of saying anything, Black Tower laughed disdainfully. "How dare a little kid like you participate in the death arena? Are you here to die? It just so happens that I have never killed a disciple of the suzerain, especially a disciple of a giant like the East Sword Pavilion." Black Tower provoked indifferently. Hearing this, Xiao Chen did not answer. After the staff left, Xiao Chen's storage ring flashed, and the Qinyan sword directly appeared in his hand. With the dark weapon in hand, Xiao Chen's aura immediately became fierce. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, the audience kept shouting loudly. The atmosphere of the scene directly reached its peak. The battle was about to begin. In a private room on the third floor of the Death Arena, the one-eyed man who had signed the agreement with Qi Yan yesterday was standing respectfully behind a beautiful young lady. The beautiful young lady had a charming smile on her face as she spoke. "You said that this kid was sold by that hag?" "Yes, it is indeed, Miss Qi Yan. That hag is really ruthless. I heard that this kid is her junior brother, and also the new disciple of Senior Tsang Xian. Please collect, recommend, reward. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.